Yeah, 5 to 6 LEDRC presentation at supper. She's at the office. She said she'll be here. Well, I'll be getting a little bit freaked out. I'd like to see this a lot. Yeah. You can't delete it. I don't like being called heavy. You force them to do it.
And that's a far. Everybody can find your porn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, she's her husband's phone.
She. Red band.
Second muscle. Not bad. There you go.
Sure, yeah.
So, I guess sign off on our adhesion agreement and Andy Derrickson's here to help bring everybody up to speed on that code and Ann Hudson, our code land manager, Sam and Steve. Welcome Colin Pena and Jason Campbell, sorry, and other guests, I guess, staff. So I'll just let everyone get to it.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert. So for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Angie Derrickson, and I'm your support technician for Land Code Development. And I just have an overview to do. Everyone should have received your packages in the mail. And I'll put it there. Does that work? And so essentially we're going to go through the documents that are in this package. And then we're going to move on to presentations from our guest speakers. So, all right. So just the background: in July 2007, Harold Joe was the chair of the LNIB Lands Advisory Committee. And this committee submitted a final draft of the land code to council. There's also copies of the presentations in the back. In March 2009, under the LNIB community planning process, a draft land code document was developed for discussion by LNIB membership and leadership. In spring 2013, LNIB Council confirmed by resolution the desire to be a signatory to the framework agreement and submitted the expression of interest to the LabRC and INAC to join the FNLM process. On March 3rd, 2014, the LNIB signed the adhesion agreement, which Robert just spoke to, and then began developing your own land code under the framework agreement. In June 30th of 2014, LNIB started the 2-year developmental process. So, as a signatory to the framework agreement, LNIB's role is to develop a land code, which is in your package, and that is to replace the 32 sections of the Indian Act, and also to enter into an individual agreement with Canada that identifies what's going to be transferred from INAC to LNIB's control, and that's also in your package. There's summaries and the full document of both of those in your package. And also to develop a community ratification process, and that outlines how the membership is going to vote on those 2 documents to see if it is what you want to move forward in. So the vote that's coming up. Sorry, my computer's being weird. Oh, I can't see. Why is my computer being like that? So this, I'm having technical issues. I apologize. I can't see it on my computer. So this chart shows the 2-year developmental process that LNIB has undertaken. So to develop your land code, your CRP, and then to work on your individual agreement with INAC. So the land code and the CRP are both verified and approved. And the chief has initialed the IA, which is in your package. So now all 3 of those documents will be moving forward to the advance poll and the vote dates. And again, those vote dates are, the advance poll is August 5th and 6th, and the vote days are August 11th and 12th. And currently electronic voting is open.
Thank you.
Yes.
We are so excited about that advance poll on August 5th. Did you know we're going to have a celebration at the Powwow Arbor? Did you know that?
I did know that, yes.
Did everybody know that on August 5th, we're gonna have a celebration at the Palo Harbor to mark the opening of the polls? We don't know what we have to do, I've already tried to get people to come, but in the next 2 weeks, we're gonna try to find out. We're gonna try to book musicians. I don't know what you need to get people out. But we're gonna do it, we're gonna have good food. We're gonna have a band maybe the chief. I don't know, but if you know any ideas on how to get people there, let me know. We actually have some money to spend. Okay?
Well, to get the chief to dance.
There you go. So,
He's getting ready for August 5th. No, just kidding. Anyways, it's a Friday. I heard all the rain was finished. So anyways, Friday, August 5th, it should be in your calendars with your family. I know we're gonna plant a tree. It's not a big deal. Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to say it's a big deal that August 5th.
yeah, Friday, August 5th is a community celebration, if anyone online didn't hear that. And there is a calendar that's also at the back that we'll be discussing more at the end of the presentation. But essentially, it's outlining all the activities between now and the end of the vote. So take a look, and we encourage you to participate in all of these, and also to, if you want one-on-one discussions, let us know. There'll be door-to-door communications happening. So you look out for the Land Code teams. They'll be out to discuss Land Code with you. So the roles and responsibilities in the developmental process is LNIB to develop your Land Code, your IA, engage with the membership, and develop and implement the community ratification process. The Lands Advisory Board is an elected political body who supports the operational First Nations in accordance with the Framework Agreement. And the First Nation Land Management Resource Center is the technical support for developmental and operational communities. So that's who I represent, is your support technician at the Resource Center, as well as Denise Kelly is here as well. You'll see her throughout the community. And we're also looking at bringing, you'll probably see 2 or 3 other faces between now and the vote who will be here to assist as well. The verifier is an independent person jointly appointed by LNIB and Canada to monitor and confirm that the Land Code and the CRP are consistent with the requirements of the Framework Agreement. Al Gross is the verifier, and you will see him in Schneelus Hall during the polls. So if you see him in the corner, that's who he is, and not to worry, he's here as a requirement of the process. The ratification officer is responsible for overseeing the conduct of the vote, and that individual is Lillian Rose, and you will see her name on all of the materials for the vote. You will see her here conducting the polls, and if you have any questions around the CRP, she's the one you want to speak to. And INAC. INAC is responsible for the negotiation and completion of the individual agreement and the appendices. So that document is in your package. And Natural Resource Canada, it was a part of this in doing the research and compilation of the surveys and the legal land description reports. So those are also, it's a reference in one of the annexes in the individual agreement, but the full legal description reports are available online, and that's at lnib.net/landcode vote, land-code-vote.
And if I could just add, throughout the whole community engagement process, you'll probably hear us using abbreviations or acronyms for some of these things. And when you hear the term like CRP, that is your community ratification process. So that's basically the rules and the processes for your vote to take place. And the IA that Angie will reference throughout is your individual agreement. So that's the actual legal transfer agreement, transferring the authority from Canada to Lower Nicola over the jurisdiction of your reserve lands.
Thanks. So to demonstrate that as well is, so this chart shows how the framework agreement works with the First Nation and the government. and the requirements under the legislation to develop your land code and individual agreements that need to be voted on through your community ratification process. So an overview of the land code. So the land code is the jurisdictional structure that's going to replace the 32 sections of the Indian Act. So within this document, there needs to be your preliminary matters outlined, the LNIB legislation, community approvals, your interests in land, protection of lands, land administration, accountability, dispute resolution, and other matters. So we'll go into those chapters a little bit more in detail. But again, these are, the land code is available online as well as in your voter package. Let's do it again. My apologies. So under preliminary matters, so this introduces the land code and defines how the document should be interpreted. It includes a description of the important terms used within the document and asserts LNIB's authority to govern and explains where that authority comes from. It also explains the purpose of the land code and describes what lands the land code is applied to through the reserved land descriptions. So if you, in your package, there are these great summaries, and here it shows them in picture format here, just a quick snapshot, and then it goes further to give more explanation on these sections. And then if that intrigues something, you can go to the table of contents of your land code and look at further what issues are in there and read on those. So if you, I always say that you should, it's a big document. We try and let you know as much as we can, but we really ask that you take a look at it. And we know it's overwhelming, but try and take a page or two a day, read through it, circle things that you may not understand or you need more questions or more answers about, write down your questions and let us know. That's what we're here for. We want to ensure that you're making an informed decision.
Can I say one thing too?
Yes.
We're really excited because we have a land code workbook and they're available in the book. And I know it's hard to do a lot of this stuff, so I do fun stuff with you guys. I do stuff like, there's word searches, crossword puzzles. So we're trying to get it at different ways because we know that might be kind of dry, I've heard. But we'll make it fun, like do a couple word searches, just so you know what the key words are that we're looking for. So I'll pass these out too.
Part 2 is, why is this? So part 2 outlines lawmaking powers that Lower Nicola will have through the land code. It introduces your community engagement process and your community approval process. It outlines who, what, where, and when, and how new laws will be introduced, created, and implemented, including where new land laws will be published and when they take effect and how they will be enforced. So all of that, you can find more details in part 2. Part 3 is community approvals. This defines the rights of the eligible voters. It also introduces the community engagement process and community approval process. It includes the procedures for community input and the approval of the member of meetings requirements. It also references the special processes required for certain specified laws and regulations. An example of that would be your allotment or spousal property laws. Those laws will need to go to meet a specific requirement and under the land code by the members. It also outlines a process to implement Lower Nicola law and the ratification process and procedures. This includes approval thresholds for passing laws and other matters such as the development of heritage sites and amendments to the land code and other matters. Oh my goodness. Sorry, let's do it to me again. I think I might just, Part 4 is interest in land. So this relates to the operation of First Nation land administration and how it's going to affect existing interests, CPs and customary and traditional interests, and new land-related interests for CP and allocations. It defines that there will need to be written documents, standards created, and that it's necessary to process any granting or disposing of assignment of lands. It defines the rights of a CP holder and the procedure for canceling a CP, the transfer and use of a CP, and the situation when a CP holder ceases to be a member. It also defines the limits on mortgages and seizures, access, transfer upon death, and the principles for spousal property law, which will be made into a matrimonial real property law in the future. Part 5 is protection of lands. This section ensures that reserve lands are protected and remain under LNIB control. It outlines key protections under the land code and the special conditions by which Lower Nicolet could expropriate lands. And this could only be through community approval ratification vote, and the conditions for calculating compensation, but also the rights that may not be expropriated. This defines the process to protect heritage sites and ensures no development or amendment can be made to the land use plan to get rid of any heritage sites created under Lower Nicolet law. It outlines the process and requirements for Lower Nicolet to exchange lands with other parties and the conditions to receive lands that would come back from that. So this is an important section because what it does is your reserve lands are created through your legal description reports, and those lands can never shrink under land code. If there is an exchange of lands that is entered into with LNIB and another, it could be the government or another entity, if you agree as a community to part with 4 acres of your reserve base, that 4 acres has to be replaced at a minimum, including compensation. So what that means is you would have to, the government will need to support you adding more reserve lands to ensure that 4 acres isn't missing out of your land base. And it also gives you the opportunity to expand your reserves in that setting as well.
Is that taking the property values?
Yeah, it would all be based on fair market value. Yeah. So part 6 is land administration. So this section establishes your lands advisory committee and defines the composition, eligibility requirements, selection method, term of office, and dealing with any vacancies. It defines how revenue monies from lands will be handled. So revenue money from the land would be through a lease or a permit or fees that are generated off of the lands. It defines the process for obtaining approvals for registration of land interests, which could be leases, permits, and licenses, etc., or how it would be captured in the First Nation land registry system. LNIB also has a duplicate registry through the Truvian, so that would also be administered through the lands office. Yes.
What does Truvian mean?
TrueBeans are in-house, registry of how we keep track of our information.
Mapping software. Take a peek.
Okay, perfect, you bet. So part 7, accountability. This deals with how the land code is administered by LNIB, including the rules for conflict of interest and the duty to report and abstain from participation in land matters where it is a conflict. It outlines the requirements for financial management, audit, and how financial reporting will be conducted. Establishing separate lands bank accounts, signing officers, bonding, signing authorities, and the adoption of the fiscal year for operations and reporting. It also provides specific rules for year-to-year land budget, financial policy, including the members' rights to access this information. The coordination and roles and responsibilities for creating and making audits and annual reports public. So this is a really good section. I would encourage you to go look at this in more detail. Dispute resolution. So this section is created to enable LNIB to create its own process for addressing land disputes. So some examples would be to create, it will be created after land code. It's not created through in the document yet. It just sets the authority to create this law. For a dispute resolution panel or another informal dispute resolution process, that'll come to the membership to decide how those type of panels will be created in the future. It sets out the powers for the adjudication process, including procedures, decision-making, and appeals procedures. And the last chapter is giving me technical issues again. I'm going to be like super quick at this by the end of my presentation. Other matters, it covers liability. So there will be a need for directors and officers insurance for the lands committee members and the staff. It will address offenses and enforcement. What are those offenses and how what are those penalties? That's addressed. Amendments to the land code. So your land code is a living document. You're gonna see that your land code may need to be adjusted depending in the future how your implementation goes. So there's always a way to amend the land code, but this will set out how it would need to be amended. And then of course your commencement date. It's going to define the date that your land code will take effect upon a successful ratification vote. So were there any questions about the land code itself at this point?
My favorite part of the night, come on, don't let me down. There's been questions.
We definitely encourage you to read through it, mark it up. This is your package, get out your red pen and write some questions down. So yeah, I guess I'll move on. If any questions come up during the night, just write them down and we can address them after. So the next section is the individual. Yes, Anna.
Can I ask a question and answer it?
Sure.
All right, this is how it's done. How do you amend the land code? Anybody know? How amend it? Sandra, Chief Counsel. Until for a little while, maybe. But more importantly, it has to go to a meeting of the members, kind of like mom. Meeting of members. Meeting of members is covered in number 10 and 11. It's on page 16. And I want to ask a follow-up question. But where are those gift cards? Cassandra gets one. That's how we roll around here. Can you answer? Yeah, well, you didn't do the flow shopping. So the next, like on the land code, necessary. And the quorum that is necessary is 10% of the eligible voters of LNIB. So I would like to know if there's anyone here other than me that knows what would 10% of our eligible voters be? What is quorum at a meeting of members? How many of you?
110.
That's a good guess. I heard two, I think I'm gonna give you two more. But we have 957 eligible voters. So what's quorum? I heard it right there first, if that's okay. Can I have that one there, Jeff? And can I have one to Liz and to, what's this guy's name? You right there with the white shirt on. Okay, last. Stephen. Can I have one to Liz and Stephen?
Starbucks?
I'm just gonna start talking a little bit because it's really important to think about it for a minute. When is the last time you've seen 95 people at a meeting?
Usually.
Besides the upcoming celebration on August 5th. When we're gonna have at least 300 people, because that's how many food things I booked. So you better be bringing your friends and family. But, you know, we've got issues. Well, we are in the new millennium, so we're gonna do things like use technology. We're using technology tonight to let people live stream and communicate. So that could be a person. Is anybody on with us tonight?
There was
Jack?
two or
We
three.
have two on?
Uh,
Two or three?
Just one other person.
Okay, good. So we have options, we want to move in the new millennium with you guys. So we have high thresholds, like we want to get you guys engaged. So 95 people, that's what we need for meeting of members to get that amendment done. Just wanted to throw it out there, okay? Thanks, Ed.
You bet.
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, yes.
I have a question. So the land court, is that to be rid of IDAC?
Only for land-related provisions of the Indian Act. So Wilson Estates still apply, education still applies, membership still applies, land-related 34 sections of the Indian Act related to land will not apply.
32 sections.
32 in your book, 34 in mine. But anyways, sorry. 32 sections of the Indian Act. There was a debate. I still think I'm right. But anyways, no, just kidding. Just kidding. But anyways, so we're just taking out the land-related sections. Okay? And can I have one more gift card because I do like people that ask questions. Or down to Starbucks.
That was Starbucks and cats.
I do want to say I love Starbucks. So anyone that gets one, take one in.
All right. So now we're going to look at the individual agreement. So this is the document that was negotiated between Lower Nicola and the Minister of Indian Affairs. So this sets out your operational funding after a successful vote, the revenue monies, the interest in land that are currently registered, your environmental issues through a phase 1 environmental site assessment, list of other information, interim environmental process, and your description of lands. So again, these are available online in detail. This individual agreement is very large. It's 2 binders that are on the back. So it has been condensed with reference to those larger reports online. And if you need any assistance getting those reports, or if you just want to come to the office and look at the hard copy, you're more than welcome to do that. So under Annex A, your operational funding is determined as a Tier 1 funding level. So this would give you $204,536 annually to your lands department. So this will be, it's referenced as your core funding. So this will be, it will continue on an annual basis. There will be one-time transitional funding that will help you over the first 2 years of implementation for a total of $150,000. So that's to help set up your offices, start your law development processes, and other things that are priority to LNIB for land management. Annex B identifies your revenue monies, and this is approximately $285,265.49. So this, just to know that these are monies that have been generated off of the land through either leases or other instruments, permits. And this number is calculated based on interest. So it will be different at the end of the day because every day you're calculating interest on that. Annex C, it identifies your interest, existing interests and licenses that are registered in the Indian Land Registry System. And these will be transferred over to the First Nation Land Registry System for LNIB to manage. Yes. Anna.
Take me, okay. This area is really interesting. Annex C, and it's all available online. That first part of Annex C is everybody in the band who might have an Indian interest in the land, which would be like a certificate of possession. They're all listed there. There's 82 pages of them. So I showed Irene today, didn't I? Did I show you how to do it when you look up a name? No? I did. I showed up a lot of people how to look up names, and I'll show anyone how to do it because it's fascinating. You can find out, you just hit Control F or you hit find, and I can type in, I did, Joe Shooter, so I typed in shooter, and I can see maybe there's 15 different shooters with land. Like everyone who thinks they have a CP needs to check to make sure it's recorded. The other thing that's listed in Annex C is all of the licenses and agreements we have with Spectra Energy, with the gas and pipelines, with Kinder Morgan. They're all listed too. And I have this thing, it's crazy, I know, but I'm hoping that the members of LNIB actually start being aware of what's going on their land. And when you start getting aware, I'm hoping you'll come join the Land Management Advisory Board. That's my big dream. But anyways, we'll walk you, Jack, will you be able to walk people through Annex C?
Sorry, which one's that next?
Can you walk people through if they come in and take, if they say, I want to see Annex C, do you know how to do it?
Yeah.
Good. So you can ask Jack to do it, you can ask me to do it, maybe you can ask Sandra to do it soon. You can ask Sandra's team if they can do it. Jeremy, do you know how to show people through it? But you will by tomorrow, right? Okay. So we've got a great team. So we'll walk you through it. If you don't like me, surely you'll like those guys. All right, so I'm too talky.
I have a question on Annex A, operational funding. You look at just the general size of our reserves and how everybody knows that lives near the edges or has any dealings with the edges of the reserve, like there's certain encroachments either in or out of the boundaries. And with this operational funding, has anybody looked into updating surveys to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the through this process, all of the external boundaries have been surveyed. So if there have been any encroachments, those have been identified.
That's Annex G too.
And and the line description. Yeah, so that those two will work together. The one thing that it doesn't address is this does not address internal surveys. So that will be dealt with under your land code. But this is just to identify the exterior boundaries of the reserves. Anna?
And one of these is very progressive. So for example, right now, they have posted for a bylaw officer. And we're looking, like ideally in our dream world, we're going to have like a tribal police force or some sort of tribal regulatory body that can go out and enforce the rules we're making. Because there's no point in making rules if they're not enforced. So, and we want to do that internally. It'll take time, but we want to have a homegrown force that will enforce what we're doing. Not only will they enforce it, they'll do dispute resolution panels as well. So we're looking for the justice-minded people to get on panels. We'll make a case law of how we decide things at LNIP. And when I say we, I know I'm not a member. My department will administer things, but I really want the people to step up, get your culture, get your values, get it clear, get it to us, and we implement what you guys want. But we're getting there. We're getting there a step at a time, and we're starting with the bylaw officer. Rick Robert, council member, yeah. So that's exciting.
Does Annex C include traditionally held land that isn't CP?
No, but the land code talks about how we're going to set up processes to reconcile traditional holdings with Indian Act holdings. So right now, the land code only deals with Indian Act holdings, but we have to, I would say, with or without the land code, LNIP needs an allocation policy. With or without the land code, we need to allocate property. We can't just go into limbo, it's not right. So we'll get there, it's not gonna be easy. So we need people to step up.
Been in limbo for a long time.
If I can say one more thing on that.
Yes.
The exciting thing about land code is because we'll have a land code, council can't table every decision that comes to it. They can't go, yeah, I don't really feel like dealing with it, I'm just coming to an election and I don't wanna deal with it. There's policies that they have to deal with things, and we'll have a land management advisory board that will push them to act. And I'll say one more thing, for us, our vision is to have representation on that land management advisory board. For example, I want to see someone from Zoll, someone from Joyaska, someone from Shulu, someone from Rocky Pines, someone from Off Reserve. I want to see young people, I want to see old people, I want to see customary people, I want to see legally trained people. We want a representative body, and we're ready to help pick you, but we just need you to step up. Okay? We're getting there, I promise, and as long as I'm there. But anyways, I don't know what happens at drum gospel, just kidding.
Back to, I don't know if it'll fall under any of the annexes, personal surveys, like, I know we had met and my mom might be facing the cost of a survey. With the land code, is that gonna be covered now under the land code, or will individuals, if they require a survey, will they still have to pay for that?
So right now, under Indian Affairs, there is a policy that you can apply to have your surveys paid for. And likely under the new system, we'll have a policy, like if there's some reason that you can't afford your own survey, we'll probably have some money set aside. However, if the end result is you get your own land and that's declared, then we might kind of say you kind of have to pay for it. Like, because once it's done and approved, that's your land. And for someone like your mom, it's such a complicated piece, but there's 3 people right next door and they'll all share the cost of that survey. So we have ways, right, Irene, of making it so that everybody shares it, like in a way that everyone comes out ahead, right? We really try to take into consideration like everything we can. We're human. Like in our department, we're really human. So we're not rich. You know how much I'm making. I'm just kidding. So, yes.
Yeah, that would fall under the structure of the land code and the policies that are developed.
And the land management advisory board, land management advisory committee sets those policies. So we need to make sure we get good people on that land management advisory committee.
So Annex D. Annex D is your environmental issues. So it shows the results of the environmental site assessment of phase 1. And it's going to identify any environmental concerns that INAC is responsible for pre-land code. So anything identified in those reports, which are at the back table or online, you can take a look at them and make sure that any issues that you're aware of are identified in that report. But that essentially is the line in the sand INAC is responsible for anything in the past, and LNIB will be responsible for those in the future. So that's a consideration. Annex E is a list of other information. So nothing's in this section in your individual agreement, because this section is meant to identify if you were currently in the middle of a negotiation of a lease or any other transactions that may have got caught in between your vote date and implementation date. And currently there are no issues that LNIB has in limbo. So Annex F is your interim environmental process. So this process will cover LNIB for how you will do your environmental processes until you're able to develop your own law. So it's there for your protection, so there won't be a gap in that process. And of course, Annex G, the last of the annexes, is your description of lands. So this shows the legal description of your reserve boundaries and the reserves that will be managed under the land code. Was there any questions about the individual agreements? No? Anna? No? Okay.
Why is it
Oh,
called an
check.
individual agreement if it has nothing to do with the individuals in the band?
I don't know that answer. The individual First Nation and the minister, or Indian group.
As opposed to all of the communities, it's the agreement with your community.
The agreement, your individual agreement with the minister over your lands.
I specifically asked that question because I knew you didn't have an answer.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks. You're testing me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please don't do that to me.
Do I get a card? No, I'm just kidding.
Jack owes you a card.
He owes me a Starbucks. Great, and so next, so the next overview is on the community ratification process. So there is a summary in your booklet that outlines the sections and gives you some detail. It shows the ballot question, which I'm sure you guys are all aware of. This goes through how to register the eligible voters, the duty of the ratification officer, the requirements for notice of votes, community information to be distributed, the methods of voting. There's currently the electronic voting at the polls and mail-in ballots. The voting day, how things will happen on voting day, how the ballots will be counted, how any objections will be dealt with, and the report by the verifier. So the full CRP is available online, and the summary there, you'll just find a summary in your report. And if you have any specific questions, Lillian Rose is your ratification officer, and she'll be able to address those.
So you have to be registered to vote,
Yes,
and that 25% of the band members, does that only apply to the registered voters? Like if only 500 people register to vote, that 25% that needs to pass, that's from that 500 people, or is it the full 957?
so the minimum requirements for voting is 25% plus 1 of your membership must vote in favor of line code.
Eligible.
Okay.
You're eligible.
Is that taken from the registered, or is that all members?
All members.
Okay.
And 5% of all eligible voters.
Okay.
And we have 1,200 members here, 957 eligible voters.
But you do have to be registered to vote.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're looking, and our worst thing, and Denise will confirm it, is people who register and then don't vote. Because then we lose, that's a no. So if you register, you have to vote if you want to do this.
Okay.
And our number is 300, right? I heard as soon as we get to 300, I get to be quiet for 24 hours. Because I won't be begging people to vote anymore.
So typically, we, as the resource Center staff, when we come into a community to assist through the land court process and gearing up for vote days, the greatest thing is to see high percentage of participation. And hopefully, by the time we do a couple of weeks worth of door-to-door work and engaging with the members, more on a one-on-one level, we'd like to see at least 400 people vote, or more. I think the chief mentioned there was about 410 at the last election, so we'd actually like to exceed that. But that's our target. So out of the 957, 25% plus one of that must be yes votes in order for it to pass.
Yes.
Yeah, and my daughter got a hold of me. She's in William Lake.
Yeah.
And she was asking me who did they contact if they have any questions regarding this. So who did they get me in touch with?
She can contact the band office and they'll know who to direct it to. Maybe what we'll do is get her name and her phone number from you and we can contact her directly. Yeah.
And there's two sides, and we have to be really careful about the two sides. If she has a question about the land code, she talks to anyone in the department. We have a whole team of land code champions. If she has a question about voting, just talk to Lillian. Because Lillian is the ratification officer, so she's the one that handles the questions. Lillian Delilah is on the ratification side, because we have to keep a wall between, she'll help voting, but she's not biased at all. I'm a little pro land code. I don't want to help her vote, because I'll be like, oh, yes. I think it count as a no, but if you check off yes. So, I can't help her vote. But we have unbiased people ready to help the voting process on the ratification side. We're the community engagement side, we're kind of pro land code. So we're settled that way, aren't we? So, not really.
Do we have to register separately for this vote, or?
You can register and vote at the same time, it's all in your packet.
If we're registered to vote in the election, say, we're not registered, we have to vote, we have to register specifically for.
We're really sorry about the timing, because you've got two big packages in there.
And that's a good point. We do have videos online that show you how to put your mail-in ballot together. Also shows you how to, sorry, you distracted me. Shows you how to do an online vote. And then of course at the polls, Lillian Rose will be at the polls to assist. And yeah, we're gonna get there. Sorry? Oh. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, the contact information is on your calendar in the bottom corner. You have the land code team can be located at the office at 250-378-5157 or at landcodechampion@lnib.net, and someone will assist you. And then Lillian Rose's contact information is phone number 250-342-1635, and her email is lillianrose363@gmail.com. And again, you can find that on your calendar. Yes.
You're going to have to do a heck of a lot better selling than what you're doing right here. Just looking at how many people come to this meeting right now. It's going to be an automatic no if you don't sell between now and election day.
We have strategies. You're going to have to say stop calling. But once we're going to go full tilt. We're going door to door. We're telephoning. We're online. August 5th. I'm hoping to see you guys all at Palo Harbor. So we've got some good things happening, and we have arguably one of the best CRPs in the province. Outgrow's called it the best in the province because we're allowing online voting, cell phone voting, mail-in voting with self-addressed stamped envelopes, and at advanced poll and regular poll.
Doesn't mean you're gonna get to every year.
I only need 25% of you guys. So, I'm not even going for the on-reserve people, I'm going off-reserve. I'm going to those Texas people, they love this. I'm just kidding.
You know, I look at the amount of people here that own land, you know, they own a lot, but people that actually own land, like myself, for instance, my piece of property up there.
You gotta check Annex C, by the way, to make sure you really.
It's gonna be 100 years old since my grandfather created first acre there.
Yeah.
Next year, so, I'm a little concerned about how this land code is gonna treat me and my family. So, you know, that's big concern, and if I don't see anything positive about it, and I'll automatically vote no.
I can give you at least 10 reasons, these guys will go first, but we'll talk after. But the number one reason is, when is the last time you've seen anyone from the Department of Indian Affairs talking to you about land? In the last 100 years?
Never. Oh, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, when the Indian Affairs was in town here.
40 years ago?
Or longer than that.
So now, like, the biggest question is, why would we pay bureaucrats on Melville Street in Vancouver to do stuff when you can pay stuff in-house here?
Yeah.
That is the biggest question. Why would you, what could they possibly know that we can't know here? That's the biggest question. Why? There's no reason. There's no reason. And I'll tell you that from the bottom of my heart, there's no reason. So, but we'll talk after. That's just the number one reason is, why would you pay a bunch of what I call, where I'm from, Soyapis, non-members, white people, to administer land here? They've never been here. Our land department, we made a commitment, we had the best time ever. We go out in one vehicle, right, Jack? We have promised to go to every reserve before the land code. We promise to do that every year. You just sit and talk to people out on your land. Feed your barbecue. I can hear from you what the issues are. Because we're not afraid of you. We want to solve your issues. Like, and we're ready to do it. We have a huge backlog. We're ready to do it. But anyways, that's your other pluses. Right now, we've got Jack, we've got Jeremy. We have made a commitment to hiring your members, to training your members, to paying, putting the money into your community, because you know what you're doing. It's land. Why would you be a First Nation if you don't know what you're doing? So you got it. We'll help facilitate, but you got it. Okay? Tag teamed in. Your turn.
And very good point. This opportunity that LNIB has is a huge endeavor. We look to all of you to help spread the word, to get educated about land code, because this is strictly for LNIB and its members. This does not affect anyone else except for yourselves. So, you know, if you want a family meeting, it sounds like you would be willing to have a family meeting or just a smaller coffee session. Let us know. We'll be there. We'll answer all your questions and ensure that your concerns are met. But again, like everybody here, we encourage you to spread the word and to participate in these sessions that are coming up, and to engage your families and to ask them to, have you heard of land code? You should check it out. You should read the book and mark it up. Come out. You might win some coffee cards. You know, it's really important to be making an informed decision when it comes to this vote.
Oh, one final thing. We have did they get it for today? But we have 2 big prizes. Like, there'll be the big prize for, what's the prize for Jeff? I forget.
There'll be one for the 5th.
Yeah.
There'll be one for the open house. And then one for just coming to read the data, just an iPad.
So, yeah, when you sign the sheet, you put your name in a draw. We're open to anything to get people out. You guys are a tough audience. You're hard to get to come to meetings. We're hoping you're voting. It's because they're at home voting. We hope that's why.
And if you have ideas on what we could be doing to engage further, you know, we're always open to suggestions, and we encourage you to let us know how can we reach out, and how can we ensure that members are having that informed decision.
Because we're hiring 6 people right now, community engagement people for 3 weeks. We're hiring six people working night and weekends. They can't be shy people. They can't be afraid of people not wanting to talk about them. They gotta kind of be like me. So, but anyways, we're doing what we can. We've got some money to spend because we're not losing it at the end. We're not getting to the end and losing this. I hope.
So we've gone through the 3 documents, and just checking in on the process that LNIB is now ready. The vote date has been set. The advanced poll is August 5th and 6th, and the vote dates are August 11th and 12th. And again, the online voting is open, and the voting station, those days will be in this room. So, you know, round up your family, ask them to ask their questions, and then bring them to the polls. So on that community engagement discussion, we do have the calendar that is on your tables. We've also been doing a lot of social media. I don't know how many of you are on Facebook, but there's been a lot of information on the LNIB Facebook page. There's, we wanted to just highlight the ballot question. So in your packages, you will have your ballots, mail-in ballots, as well as online and at the polls. Do you approve the Lower Nicolet Indian Band land code dated April 1st, 2016 dated for reference, and the individual agreement between Lower Nicolet Indian Band and Her Majesty Queen and Rite of Canada? So an explanation to that would be a yes vote means that LNIB will manage your own lands under your land code, and a no vote means that LNIB will continue to manage lands under the Indian Act. So those are your 2 options. And then the calendar, so we've been referring to the calendar a lot, but we wanted to ensure there was a snapshot of the activities happening between now and the end of the polls. And you can see that there will be, there have been community picnics. There's going to be another community picnic around here next Wednesday. Next week there'll be door-to-door. There'll be land code teams. There'll be sets of 2 to 3 land code teams coming, doing door-to-door visits. Please invite them in or ask them some questions. Challenge them like Jack would do. And then tonight, of course, is our open house and special guests that we're getting to soon, I promise. And then the big community celebration will be held on August 5th. And then, of course, the LNIB open house and AGA will be happening on August 9th and 10th, and we'll have a land code station set up. We'll have some, fun prizes and try and engage in conversation around land code. And then we're always open to home visits and family meetings. So at any time, do not hesitate to contact us. And then showing the calendar is just, a little reminder that time is going fast. So as the weeks go by, I think we're at 4 weeks? 3 weeks?
3 weeks, 2 days.
So, keep the schedule with you. We encourage you to come and participate. Use the back, drop down questions there and bring it with you, or call us, or any way that we can get your questions answered. So, again, the information is at lnib.net, land code, land-code-vote, and that is all of the documentation that's within your packages that will be voted on. Excellent. So, yes,
You have a list of, other bands that have voted yes, and they're, kept their own land code all in order and happened.
58. 58 First Nations are in the land code.
How many in BC?
we are getting to that.
42.
42
A
in
lot of
BC,
them, right?
34.
34 are in BC.
and then the rest of Canada,
Yep.
58.
not the rest of the 50, out of the 50.
Yeah, we're half in BC.
34 in BC, you said?
Yes.
That was my best line ever. It's like, remember when you were getting your driver's license? You were looking around going, well, if they got one, then I could probably get one too. It's like, so it's the same thing with the land code. There's 58 other First Nations, they did it, I'm sure we can too.
Excellent. So now we've done the overview of the land code package, and now we're going to move into our guest speakers. So we do have a separate presentation just to give a little more context about success stories under operational land code. And you also have a handout. So you guys are good to go? So the framework agreement is a government-to-government agreement which establishes the process that First Nations can carry out to assume control over the reserve lands and resources. Yes, John?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for the advantages that are a part of this, how is it working for them?
Yeah, let me do a little intro and then we're gonna get our guest speakers to give some information. We also have another handout. This handout, KPMG studies. It's just a little 2-pager. But essentially it gives, yes. If you flip to the second page, there's a little, some little short descriptions of successes across Canada. And then, of course, we have our presenters too, who will highlight their successes being operational under land code. So in the context of administration, the framework agreement on First Nation land management is one mechanism that First Nations can utilize to regain authority to control, manage, and govern their reserved lands and resources. This includes the jurisdiction to make laws regarding land use, management, conservation, and protection of the reserved lands. We have a little video here, but I think I'm just gonna go over that today. So the principles of the framework agreement, that this is an entirely community-driven process. First Nations, the First Nations own land code replaces those 32 provisions of the Indian Act. So that's approximately 25% of the Indian Act would no longer apply. The reserve lands remain federal reserve lands under 9224, section 9124. So they do not become provincial. This is not a treaty. This, you maintain your reserve lands. It includes on and off reserve members in decision making and includes lawmaking powers over the reserve lands and resources. And there's no expropriation of reserve lands by outside governments.
Which they can do now.
Which they can do now.
The outside governments can expropriate land now if they need it. They've done it for highways. You know that. They can just take it. You know what happens after land code? They can't. Right now, if they expropriate, they can negotiate not even with us. But under land code, they have to negotiate with LNIB.
Canada remains liable for those previous acts and omissions that we talked about earlier under environment and lands. Third-party interests on reserve are protected until that interest is expired. So whatever is currently registered in the registry system remains in effect. Once those expire, those leases they need to come to LNIB or to the member to renegotiate those leases. They won't go to the minister anymore. Of course, the individual band member interests are protected, so any valid CPs or other legal interests will continue as they're registered currently. Local dispute mechanisms will be developed to the satisfaction of the First Nation. So you have identified that under your land code. We looked at that. Conflict of interest provisions are mandatory that ensure fair land practices. And of course, your lawmaking powers over your reserve lands.
We even have a section in the land code, section 24 is a section on tenancy and access rights. So what if you have tenants? What happens? You read section 24, we know. So we're allowed to have, non-members are allowed to live on reserve, as long as they're not making trouble.
Okay, getting back to the principles of framework agreement, the last one, lawmaking power over lands and leases. I don't understand that part.
I can get into some of that.
Pardon?
I can get into some of that, yeah.
So just a summary of First Nations from across Canada. There's 118 signatories to the framework agreement. Lower Nicolet is one of those. There's 45 developmental First Nations, and Lower Nicolet is one of those. 58 operational nations, so they have successfully ratified and are implementing their land codes. One of those have gone self-government, which is Westbank, and 2 have gone forward to treaty, and that would be Tawasin and Slan. So this is a list. This is a list of the 58 operational First Nations across Canada that are implementing their land codes. So you can see that 35 are in BC. So, you know, if you have any questions, you know, this group of First Nations is a family, a land code family, and they all support one another in the network of implementation. If there are any questions you have, you can feel free to call any one of them, and they'll be happy to talk to you. That's the list there. And now to our guest speakers. Finally, we're getting to our panel. Colin, I'll ask you to go first if you don't mind. Oh, you want to go first? Okay. No problem. So, let me just look the.
Okay.
Excellent.
You want me to stand? You want me to sit there or stand there? Or?
Do you want to flip or you want to stand?
It is best if you sit in front of the mic.
Okay.
Because that way you're in the camera. I feel kind of bad for the 2 people that are watching the stream, and I do want to absolutely thank the people that are watching the stream, and especially the person that dropped me a like. It makes my day worth it here. And I hope you guys are enjoying this, and I made sure that you stand in front of the camera for you guys, so you aren't just watching just the projection.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone in this area for welcoming us. To say a few words on our experience with Land Code. My English name is Jason Campbell. I'm from the Seabird Island Band, just outside of Agassiz. I come from the Peters family there. My traditional name is Tuch Blaloch. I also carry a name from the northwest coast of Vancouver Island, Tinasana. That's from the Cayuga and Checklisette people on the northwest coast. Just before I get into the presentation, this isn't going to be, I don't need you guys to sit there and just watch the presentation. I really kind of would rather go through questions. The presentation is here just for prompts, just for me to be able to have some information and respond to questions and that kind of thing. Whenever, my experience, whenever any of our people go to any other territory, we always ask permission and we're always thankful for the acceptance and the welcome that we receive. Why is it that we do that? Respect of what? Respect of the land that you're on. Because it's your land, right? And that's kind of what this comes down to, is remembering that this is your land, right? And I'm just a guest here for now. So, a little bit about the community. So, if you guys don't know, we're in the Upper Fraser Valley, just outside of Agassiz. We're considered still in the District of Kent. We're right there. We're relatively small as far as reserves go in the rest of Canada, but we're very large for a Stalo community. Most Stalo communities are very, very, very small. We're lucky to have some acreage. We're about the same size in membership as your community. We're hovering around 1,000. We've got about 900 of almost the identical amount of eligible voters. Same idea. And we're surrounded by either slough or Fraser, the Fraser River. So completely encased in water. So next slide. We wanted to make sure that our community values were implemented into the land code. We wanted to ensure that it wasn't just a cookie cutter land code. Having said that, it's also very, very good to start with a good base. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. A lot of communities put a lot of money and time and effort into their land codes, and it's important for you to make it yours and make sure that your values and your vision is within those documents. So all the things that everybody would be looking for: culture, planning and managing change, economic diversity, education, healthy lifestyles, land use planning and management, political stability, governance, accountability, self-reliance, and independence.
And so you said, like our values and stuff.
Yeah.
In what way specifically did you like apply changes to your land code according to your culture?
So we have to be. We're a fundamentally fishing culture where we're at, right? Fishing and agriculture. And our community is also traditionally was a place for gathering berries and other medicines and stuff like that. So within the land code, we wanted to ensure that we protect those areas for those cultural uses. So in 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now, they didn't develop over those areas that were very important to us. So if that's where we got our salmon berries, we wanted to make sure that people could always get those there. If our fishing spots were in certain areas, we wanted to make sure that those were protected. So that's just some of kind of what we're talking about when it comes to that. I know that that's just a resource-based answer, but that's also culturally based. Right?
Absolutely, and that definitely plays in a lot with your culture and stuff. And I know that there are other examples with like community values, right? Like the dispute resolution and stuff. But I'll let you continue on.
Okay. So laws, we had a question earlier about laws. We had a statement earlier about bylaw enforcement officer. Get bylaw out of your head. It's not a bylaw. Bylaw is a municipal thing. It's a ticket writer, right? You under this land code, if you decide to choose to go under it, you are developing laws, federal laws with weight. So it's no longer something that it's something you're going to have to negotiate with the RCMP about how those are going to be enforced, whether or not they can enforce them. You talk about your own police force, that's another option. Having some sort of other security agency to do it, or maybe somebody internal that handles it, but they are laws. They are not bylaws, they are laws. And with the full weight of your community behind them. And so your laws have to reflect both national laws, though, like you can't have a law that says it's okay to do something that's illegal everywhere else. Like it's your laws. federal laws supersede these laws, but still, it's like municipal law, bylaws, but with more teeth and more weight. So your community has the ability to create laws for whatever happens to be an issue in your area. Our examples, business permitting law. So we created a business permitting law to ensure that all businesses that were operating within our First Nation were doing so the way we wanted them to do it, right? Making sure that they were following strict guidelines. So no matter what it is that they were doing, they were following our environmental rules, making sure they were following safety rules. Our safety rules exceed the federal government safety rules. Our environmental rules exceed the federal government environmental rules, right? So the idea here is not to stamp down business. It's just to make sure that the business is running according to what we want. We don't want any fly-by-night businesses doing something that's going to hurt our land or our people, right? Dog licensing and animal management law. Yes, ma'am.
Not them, first of all.
Auntie.
Sorry. Stop that bravely. Now I forgot. No. Your presentation, and you said not to recreate the wheel, so your presentation will be available for us to use as a handout later, or I don't know that we have it as a handout now.
No, this is, honestly, I just provided this to the staff right when I got here.
Oh,
but I don't.
But you're leaving it for us to take a look at?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry again, sorry. Dog licensing, animal management. So our community had a real issue and still does with, dogs running wild, becoming a nuisance, attacking other animals, attacking children, those types of things. We even had issues with people bringing in exotic pets, so large pythons and stuff like that, which in itself isn't a big deal, but if they weren't properly monitored, could cause a danger. Or people breeding animals in a way that wasn't safe for the animals or for the families. So like puppy mills and that kind of thing. So we have this law which follows along with, again, animal protection laws at the national level, but we make ours tailored to our community and our needs. Development law, again, just ensuring, like I don't know if your community is the same as ours, but whenever we have an inspection on buildings, the inspection is not there to check out how well the building is made. It's just there to ensure that things are completed. So as far as the Government of Canada is concerned, when it comes to our buildings, they go, front door is done, stairs are done, plumbing is in, you've been approved, everything is completed. Off reserve, they check the workmanship. This isn't done to code. Why isn't this done to code? This is a fire hazard. This is going to cause a flooding issue. They don't do that they don't fund for that in our communities. So with the development law, you create a situation where now you're forcing any developer who's building stuff on your community to follow your building codes, which again, in our community, exceeds national building codes. To ensure that when you as a community build a new building, that it's up to snuff and no one's going to get hurt in it. Like it's not going to collapse on you, or you're going to have a leaky roof right after it's been built, right? So it's got to live up to your codes that you develop. Spousal property law. This is something that's mandatory for all the communities coming in, I believe. I'm going to rely on the staff for some of these things. Mandatory?
It's not mandatory, but they have the option because we have a federal law in place now.
Right, so that's correct, sorry. So anybody who did not create one of these laws would fall underneath the government law that was created. You guys being, if you were to vote in, would have an opportunity to create your own spousal property law. Spousal property law talks about breakups in relationships. Where does the property go? If one person is a band member, one person is not. If one person is taking care of the kids and one person is not, how do you guys want to handle that situation? It's not up to anybody else to tell you how to handle that. You guys can decide that. Whose does the property stay with? Does it stay with the kids? Does it stay with the mom? Does it stay with the band member? That's all up to you. But That's part of what that law is for. We had to create a law to prevent the accumulation or storage of discarded odorous materials. So fishing, like I've already discussed, is a big thing in our community. Some community members, or not necessarily community members, some people don't necessarily dispose of their fish nets in a good way. So they'll throw it in dumpsters for it to sit for a week, causing, undue odor and buildup. It also helps prevent other dangerous buildups, things that could be a fire hazard or anything like that. Littering and dumping prohibition law. This is about if somebody was to come on reserve and just dump stuff. That happens a lot in our community, or used to happen a lot in our community. People from surrounding communities would be like, nobody's checking, we're just gonna dump stuff here because we don't want to pay the money to take it to the dump. We're just gonna dump it here, no one saw it. And no one's gonna call the police. Also, this has, yes ma'am.
I've seen those items mentioned or referred to in the proposed North Bad Land Code. I'm interested in the notion of a membership code along with the land code. I think that's kind of what my candidate is specific to.
That's a great point. The membership code is it's a separate yet connected issue. So same with election code, right? They're all sort of connected. It's all about self-governance and being in charge of who you deem a community member, right? Yeah, long story short, really the whether you enact land code or not doesn't matter. You can always enact a membership code regardless, because they're not connected. So I would bring that to leadership for sure if that's something that you would like to move forward.
So I kind of think, this is my thoughts, the membership code should be on a parallel journey with the land code. That's my thoughts.
Mm.
The other thing, I see a lot of Seabird Island in December 2015 that the leases have been approved. Currently, the Lorna Command does have a dog animal bylaw.
Yep.
And our problem seems to be financing the efforts to enforce the law.
Yep.
Storage of the critters, staffing, vehicles, training, everything else. So currently we are not receiving the necessary funds to do these. Oh, I'm going to go then on to housing and building codes and things like that. As a band member, I asked for this BC building code, or whatever it is, to be enabled or activated within our housing department. For instance, in my own house, I was cleaning up downstairs one day, I found a weed this high inside my house. So, my question now is, with all of the land code potentially being in place and things like that, where does the funding, how does INAC support the needs there? Is it adequate? Will it be adequate?
So
Just playing around,
Yep.
knowing the federal government's track record, and I'm quite optimistic with the Honorable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, but
No, thank you very much. Those are great points. So funding is always going to be an issue. I'm not going to, that's why a large part of usually what happens when we talk about land code is the business side of the house, that you're able to start creating business and leases in order to create own source revenue for your community. So that you're able to start creating money coming in to help pay for some of those things. Now, I don't necessarily lead off with that because usually the concern is just, making sure you're protecting your land. a side benefit to land code is realistically, you don't have to contact Ottawa in order to get a response back as to whether or not you can put a pet store over here. You don't have to do that. So you'll have to satisfy your own requirements that you've created, but it'll be so much quicker than trying to contact Ottawa and coming back. So is there going to be more money for housing because of land code? I can't promise you that. I don't know. I can talk specifically about our pet law and funding in regards to that. So as an example, sorry, go ahead.
So actually, Jason?
Yeah.
I was looking at the big picture of all of these. We're looking at a business permit law, we're looking at dog licensing and animal management, we're looking at littering and dumping, accumulation and storage of discarded odorous materials, spousal property law, development law. That's going to cost a significant amount of money
To enforce?
to get those things up and going, and it's going to cost $20. It's going to cost, you know. So I'm just kind of wondering,
Nope.
how are we, I think it's really great.
Within your funding agreement, so within the budget that you have, you're going to get training and you're going to get, you're going to be able to develop those laws. We developed all these laws under that funding agreement. Everything that we have done, we've done in the same funding agreement you guys will get if you do it. One of the online questions was, what are the cons? Right now, funding the enforcement is a challenge. I don't want to say it's a con because it's not. It's a challenge. So, as an example, we have an arrangement with the Fraser Valley Regional District. So it's the local municipal government. They already have an infrastructure in place to handle animals, right? That in partnership with the RCMP and our own training internally for our community and a registration process that we've created for a very minimal amount of money allows us to now implement this. So for the cost of the tags, we ask everyone to register their animal for free. Any animal that's not registered by a certain time is now just a vagrant animal and is dealt with as such. So the SPCA comes in and manages that in partnership with our regional district. And for every animal that's grabbed, we do have to eat the cost of that. But very, very quickly, all those vagrant animals are taken care of, and the only animals that are left, you can identify who the owners are, and if they're not taking care of them properly, then they incur those costs. Is that helping at all? Yes, sir.
Yes, I think what's happened here is the people have to self-police themselves. And if a community's working together, these laws won't be used as frequently as we need it. So, but it's these laws that stand in place for the community against some people that aren't being respected of the community at large. So I mean, the people should be self-policing themselves. We wouldn't need extra laws to tell them what to do or say, or tell them when to jump and how high.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a comment on my.
No, perfect, and that's perfect. So, and we have these because we require these.
But human nature is where it is. I mean.
Yeah. So you have laws just like speeding. There's rules on the highway for speeding, not because the majority of people can't drive a little faster safely, but because there's a certain percentage of people that can't drive safely. You write laws for a smaller segment of the population, for a small piece. So if you don't need these, don't write them. And so this lady over here noticed that most of these were approved in the same time, December 2015. The reason behind that is that it goes through the same process as everything else, is the community needs to vote on it. The community's involved in writing it, and if they don't agree with it, it won't pass, right? So this is a huge point with land code, is that you are with the laws, you're only developing laws that you need and your community agrees on. You're not going to be imposing laws that the majority of your community doesn't want. Because why would you? Why would you impose a law that no one's going to follow? Right? So you're only going to be putting in laws that you guys require and your entire community, well, not your entire, but the majority of your community wants. Otherwise, it wouldn't pass. Does that make sense? So there's usually a fear. There's usually a fear that Chief and Council is going to implement laws that the community doesn't want. Chief and Council is going to make a decision. They're going to make it. They're going to say no hopscotch on Thursdays. That's going to be a rule, right? No playing poker on Sundays. That's going to be a law. But Chief and Council can't do that, right? They can only pass laws that the Land Code Committee develops and that the community votes on. So you won't have to worry about that necessarily. Does that help you at all?
That's a big help, yeah.
Okay. So we can go to the next slide.
Okay. And just to enhance that, it's law development's based on the priorities of LNIB. So if there's something that you need to address, then that's when you should be looking at developing a law, not just to develop a law just because.
So I don't know what there's got to be some specific areas that are super important to your area. Maybe it's hunting. Maybe it's water rights. Maybe it's I don't know. I don't know what are important for your community. But there's very specific things that you guys can discuss.
Just to add to that, oftentimes what we hear as higher priorities within communities is things like trespassing, nuisance law. Sometimes soil deposit is an issue. You often will have developers who may have contaminated soil that they want to get rid of, and the process that they have to go through to get rid of it elsewhere is very pricey and difficult for them. So lots of times they'll come to the closest reserve thinking that they can get rid of the soil on our lands. One of the other ones that is often very important is the protection of your cultural sites or heritage sites, spiritual sites, whatever it may be. So those are a few that we do see oftentimes on the higher portion of the priority list.
Do you guys have a fair amount of agricultural land in your community? Yes. So as do we. So under the Indian Act, agricultural lease lands were basically just handshake deals. And never went through sort of any due process as to anything, really. Cedar Island Band, previous to Land Code, our leases were overlapped from one farmer to another. There was no real boundaries. It was like, hey, you can farm from the garbage can to the can of pop over here, and then over to that bag. That's your area, and whatever. Once Land Code came in, and we surveyed it, there was a question about surveys earlier. So what we did with that is we put the cost of survey on the leasing. So they're leasing land, they can pay for the survey. What we found was that there was a ton of overlaps. So we had to apologize and we had to fix it and make everything right and give an extension to a lease over on one area and then make another one shorter, do whatever we had to do to honor everybody's original deal for acreage for their lease. So we were able to fix our boundary issues with our leases that we didn't even know we had prior to Land Code. Because there's no place that it's surveyed and documented within the office, my guess. If anywhere, it's probably not written down, and if it is, it's in Ottawa, right? There's no regulations or monitoring pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers on the land. We had no idea what our leased agricultural people were using on that land. And we're so close to the water table that anything seeping in goes right into our well system. So under Land Code, we were able to now monitor it and enforce. So we asked for a farm plan from our leasees to ensure that this is what you can use, this is what you can't use, this is when you can spray, this is when you can't. These are some of the things that you're allowed to grow here, this is what you cannot grow here. So we can control all of that, right? So to ensure that it's in the best for everyone. Good, yeah. So other issues that we've addressed, some of the benefits, under the Indian Act, illegal dumping was problematic. No monitoring, no enforcement, no consequences. I talked to you about that. People just kind of driving around and dumping stuff. There's a lot of communities that were accepting fill for money, right? So a company would say, hey, I've got some clean fill, can I dump it in your area? Sure, for X amount of dollars per yard of fill. Only to find out later when it was tested that it was toxic. And some fly-by-night company had been dumping toxic fill onto First Nations land. And there's really nothing that can be done about it. Under land code, we've enacted the law to prevent the accumulation. We already went over those laws. Implemented this law, there's first time there's a warning, ongoing. We have contracted a security company to enforce laws. Or also our lands staff will go out and inspect areas. But again, with enforcement comes cost. There is a cost to this. But we can pass those costs on to whoever did the damage. Right? If you're caught for dumping something, you can carry the cost. Yes, sir.
You were talking about hunting and fishing there a while ago. Like in our territory, we hunt, everybody hunts in every direction here. Quite a few miles out. They don't go to Princeton, go to Ascroft, almost halfway to Camels. I guess that's all part of our, what we put in our
well, there's a difference between your traditional territory and your reserve land. So you'd be able to create a law stating, you probably fall within a trespass law, that you cannot trespass without, you cannot come onto reserve land without permission. So if there's someone from, let's say I wanted to come hunting up here, and you guys found me in one of your acreages and I dropped the moose, you'd be like, what are you doing here? They're like, oh, I'm hunting, I've got a status card, right? And you'd be like, no, you've got to come in and ask permission from the office in order to be on our reserve land. Yes, sir.
I just thought I'd follow that up a little bit with land code. Really, like it very specifically only affects our reserve, and only our land code affects our reserve. No one else's laws or whatever affect us. So if we were to go like hunting, like like elsewhere that's off the reserve, then it doesn't affect it. So like, and I know a lot of our hunting doesn't take place on our reserve land, except for I think IR7. I can't remember the actual name for it. I just know them by number. Yeah, that's all I'd say.
But so that's an important distinction though, right? The difference between your traditional territory and your reserve land. That this is only for reserve land. Yes?
So the land code applies strictly to our reserve.
Correct.
And not to the traditional
Correct.
Territory.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
We include our language in our land code. We're trying very, very hard to reinvigorate our language and culture. We've almost lost it, and we're trying very hard to implement it in everything. So I wish I could pronounce it for you, I can't. But it's good to remember the teachings of our ancestors, respect all things, don't waste, ruin, destroy everything, only take what you need. This is our land, we have to take care of everything that belongs to us. We got this from what we call the traditional laws. Our traditional laws. We try to come to our traditional laws, the laws that our people live by. And we try to relate all the laws that we created, everything that we do within the land code, to relate back to our traditional laws. That's why this is important. And that's why early on we talked about our culture and our teachings involved in the land code and making it ours and making it yours, is making sure it reflects what you would like it to reflect. No matter what decision we make when it comes to our land code, we try to refer back to this. Is the next development that we're going to do Does that waste, ruin, or destroy? Is it taking care of what belongs to us? Right? Is it respecting all things? Trying to refer back to that. Okay, thank you. Challenges. Laws apply to the members. Our own, this is one of the issues that we had. So everybody loved Land Code, everybody jumped on board, wanted to do it, and then it came time for these policies, procedures, and laws to be implemented. So all of a sudden, I voted for it, but I wanted to do something, and then it was okay when that law applied to him. Yeah, keep that guy in mind. But now that law also applies to me, and that became a little bit of an issue. Also, sometimes even within the office structure, within the administration, people are so used to doing things the way they've always done them that they weren't asking or following the proper protocols and steps to get it done. Just a learning curve. Letting Public Works know that they would have to check with the Lands Committee before they decided to break ground on a new sewer or a new whatever, right? Ensuring that all the appropriate environmental protection things were put in place. So they're so used to just doing whatever, and maybe some people would ignore Ottawa's rules because they're Ottawa and who cares? Now it's your own laws. Now you're accountable to yourselves for the rules that you may or may not be following. What's also great is that the laws apply. Anybody who comes into your reserve land, it applies to them. We have a problem with sports fishermen coming into our territory, parking, making a big mess, fishing off of our banks, that kind of stuff. So we can now impose our trespass law. Do you have permission to be here? Why are you here? We can do that now because our laws impact them. Okay.
Jack, would you have a question?
I just had a comment on like a little bit of something you were saying earlier with you were saying that like these laws seem like really great in theory in some cases, and then like in actual practice they're a bit difficult to get used to, and this and that, and change is scary, like even good change, right? But it's like do we have the willingness to go through with it and to implement it, right? And like that's really like one of the bigger questions here, because it's such a big change. Are we prepared for it? And that's not just like me, because I know that I'm fully willing to go through it and take the steps. As soon as the land goes through, there's a lot of steps that we have to take as land department. But then also, chief and council changes their procedures, and like we have to include the community more. So these are all things to kind of think about.
And that's an important point you bring up is that chief and council. I'm a second-term council member as well, and for my community, and it was a hard thing for council to not be able to do what they wanted with the stroke of a pen. So now it has to go through the Land Code Committee to make sure you're following all the processes and procedures within your Land Code to make sure you're doing things correctly and properly. Much quicker than going to Ottawa, very much quicker. But however, you still have to follow the procedures that are set in place. So it's more people. Again, I've said before, people are worried that the Land Code gives chief and council too much control. If anything, the Land Code puts more safeties on decisions made by chief and council. So if you have a council maybe that you're unsure of that comes in 10 years that may want to do some really crazy things, your Land Code and your laws will protect you from the majority of those things. Yep.
You're talking about the laws and stuff and enforcing the laws. What steps have you done to enforce your laws? Like, do you charge fees for the people that are breaking them, or like how do you enforce your laws?
So first, because it's so new even for us, it's primarily an educational component right now. We're not looking to squeeze anybody. The last thing we want to do with our own membership is to fine them or jail them or punish them. Like, we have a bad enough relationship with the regular judicial system that we don't need to create our own system like that. So it's really an educational piece. So let's say they broke the we have a burning restriction on, and they start a fire after a set time. Well, it's an education piece. This is why this is in place. This is what can happen. Yada, 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 yada. Hopefully that they understand. Maybe they just broke the law because they didn't know, or they didn't understand the seriousness of it. So it's about ensuring that you're able to educate your community members as to why these are in place and the importance of them. Dumping laws, all that kind of stuff. So, but we do have a security company that we have brought in to help us with things like, so our laws are closely tied to our housing policies. So if you're living in a banned home and you are in breach of some of these laws, you could lose your tenancy agreement. And so we have a security company helping us with delivering those notices to keep conflict to a minimum, that type of stuff. We are in the process of developing our own alternative measures or restorative justice program in order to do healing circles in order to get to a better place with some of these decisions. With off-reserve people, we're trying to make an arrangement with the local regional district as far as court goes, because they need to go through that system because they don't necessarily respect ours.
Are those processes, the restorative justice and the last one that you mentioned, the result of the land court being in place, like it's tucked right in there and it can be made to work as well?
We wouldn't have. It's because of the land code we've had to reach out and do these things. That's for sure. And it's allowing us to talk to the regional district as an equal, like a government-to-government conversation. It's allowed for us to do that for sure. I'm chewing up a lot of time. I've got Chief Pinier would like to come up after this. So economic opportunities. We have a development corporation that looks after developing our business. I don't necessarily think that all of those businesses have started because of land code, but I think it's helped fast track those businesses to where they are. Okay. If you have any questions about that, you can contact me as far as the business goes. So the creation of land code forced us to have, we call it the S4 group. So the land code committee, the chief and council, the development corporation, and our operates and title group. We meet quarterly to make sure everybody's on board with what's going on, to make sure that our development corporation isn't starting a business project that's not in line with our land code or with our operates and title. Or we're not creating a law that under our operates and title is making us look like we're going against something that maybe we've got interests elsewhere that through operates and title that our law is sort of counterintuitive to. So it forces us to get out of our individual silos, our individual departments, and talk together a little bit better. Dispute resolution, we talked about that. Restorative justice. We have yet to develop it, but we are working towards it. There's a lot of training involved with that. But this goes hand in hand with any sort of justice program. I don't know if you guys have Aboriginal justice strategy programs and alternative measures in this area. In our area, it's called Queequelsong. And right now, we're trying to utilize them to handle any of our issues right now until we can fully train up and get ours going.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
When you're talking about your justice system within your own tribal areas, if somebody is trespassing or they're doing something that is against your land code laws, and they, like say if somebody from the city came and dumped all their garbage on your land, do you put them through your justice system, or do they have to go through the?
We could do either. We could do either. So if that person is accepting of that, the chances are if someone's going to drive into our territory and dump a bunch of stuff, they're not going to be ready for that kind of a thing.
They don't like hanging by their toenails?
That's right. Yeah. So we would probably try to go with just the fining and forcing them to pay for the cleanup. Right?
Oh, that's just over.
That's the beginning,
That's it.
overview. I just had a couple notes while you guys were talking. Traditional land holdings. Traditional land holdings, we have a lot of traditional land holdings in our community. We have more traditional land holdings than we do CPs. And that is a long and complicated process. A lot of one-to-one meetings, a lot of family meetings, a lot of negotiations, a lot of setting boundaries. Because again, traditional land holdings are usually, my property goes from this tree to that rock, right? So it's about making sure everybody's in agreement. It's a long process, but it's very beneficial once it's done. And then you guys can choose to do whatever you want after you, for lack of a better term, surveyed out what those land holdings are. You can either make them all CPs, you can, I don't know, whatever you guys decide, but it's that talking process which is beneficial. Yep.
I have a question. I can see from your presentation you have a development corporation. Most of it generic files. Do you have like a CCP or a taxation file?
Not taxation, no. We're looking at the taxation when it comes into our business park. So taxation for us is related directly to what infrastructure we're providing. So with our business park, if we're able to provide road access, power, all that kind of stuff, then.
Yeah, because I was looking at it and I've been taking stuff at Tulo in Kamloops, and they say you have to have the First Nation Land Management Act in order to get into a leasing position for your land. And even though you have the taxation file, with the taxation file, that also adds for the band capacity to charge taxes to corporations that are operating in the reserve. And I have another question with the transaction. What do you see transaction fees for, say, residential transactions, to a development corporation? That's not a band organization.
Yeah, and that's where those are really fees that you guys would come up with. You'd want to make them comparable to the local community. And it's got to be beneficial to you. My experience with taxation and registrations and stuff like that is really limited. The staff here probably have a much better understanding of that than I do, because we're not there yet. We're hoping to be there, but we're not quite.
I was just wondering if you had, are you guys going to be looking at the municipality that's near you that you probably sort of carbon copy?
Yes, definitely.
Similar areas?
Definitely. And if anything, we're working along with them. As an example, we tie into their sewer right now, and we have to pay service agreements. And we're hoping that we can develop our own infrastructure, that maybe they have to tie into ours, and we can start making some dollars from that.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, because a lot of the stuff that they're talking, they're saying you need both of these in order to have a very successful economic development situation.
Yeah, I don't.
It's development cost charges.
Yep, development cost charges, development fees, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And
infrastructure helps. Honestly, I haven't been in at the knife's edge of those talks, so I can't really speak as intelligently about that as I would like. But again, the staff have seen this in a number of communities, and I'm sure that they'd be able to give you some direction in that regard. So I'm sorry I couldn't answer that. The environmental site assessments, when and if you guys get into land code, it is imperative that you get as much information as possible from as many of your community members about historical environmental issues. So within our community, we had an issue where a situation was reported, but the landowner wouldn't allow the workers on site to inspect it. So if in the future something arises from that site, we're on the hook for it because we never allowed them to inspect it before. It's important that you as a community can identify all the historical environmental issues that may be arising for them to identify, so that INAC can pay for the remediation of those sites, so the fixing of those sites.
That's all, it covers all contaminants and everything, like say mines and mine spills and oil and oil spills and.
Now, there's a finite amount of money, and they're not all gonna do it overnight. But they are, as long as you identify it, they're responsible for it. It may take them 150 years to pay for it, but they're still responsible for it. Whereas after the fact, if it's not identified, it could be you responsible, your community responsible for it, or the CP holder if it's
So
theirs.
if we're doing this and we're impacted by Craigmont Mine, which is like, if you look out the window, it's right there.
Yep.
And Highland Valley Mine, which, you know, the garbage is coming down our main section of our community here.
So if there's historical stuff from those mines, it's IMAC, and they would go after the company for it, I'm sure. If it's after this, you would directly go after them for it. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
For the class, for the group, where is the environmental assessments, all of the problems with reserves so far, where is that found? Where can you find that? It's a two-part answer. It's got one gift card answer.
Environmental assessment.
You're close. It starts with the agreement, and it's the letter D. It's Annex D of the individual agreement. Is there anyone that can say that for a gift card? D.
You get the gift card, right?
Okay, that's another question. Where could you find that? Annex D. Where can you find Annex D? Where can you find the individual agreement? It's not actually in the booklet.
Not in the
The references are. Well, they're on the workshop where they go, right? Where people come to ask, but anyways. I just want to say something really quickly. I'm sorry to interrupt. I know the clock is ticking. We have 3 big binders in the main office. You can talk to anyone at reception. We have 3 big binders in the lands office. We also put everything online. Annex D, we have had 3 environmental site assessments at every single reserve. We didn't have anyone say you can't look here. We've listed everything. So it's there for you to find. Okay? Do I have one more question after Jeff? Or Jeff? Just one more? One more gift card?
One more gift card.
We'll wait for it.
So just I have 2 more things before the gracious Chief Colin Vendor allows me to come up. Is in our community, the family meetings were very impactful. So what it allowed for is more of an intimate conversation with the staff and the workers, because sometimes in larger group settings, people don't feel comfortable asking questions. Maybe there is some sort of a boundary issue between 2 families and they're both sitting in the room. Maybe there's just other questions they don't feel comfortable asking. So with the family meetings, they were sort of labor intensive because you're having multiple meetings, but you get a lot of information. And you get a lot of information and the families get a lot of information. So they feel more comfortable making their decision. So that was really important for us, both during the land code vote and after, when it came to the land use plan and all that kind of stuff. I can't stress that enough. And when I say family, it doesn't mean that everyone with the last name Peters had to sit in the meeting. My family is gargantuan. That's an impossibility. My grandparents had 15 kids, so there's just no way we could get all of us in a room. So anything 4 to 6 or higher would be fine to have these smaller meetings if you chose to do that. The other thing I wanted to say is I don't want this to come off as a sales pitch for land code. That's not the intent. The intent is just so that your community can make an informed decision on whether they would like to do it or whether they would not like to do it. So, and what I always tell people is that when land code came through Seabird, I voted against it. And I voted against it because I didn't know enough about it. Afterwards, I still didn't know, so I got on the land code committee to have an impact as to what was happening. And then I moved on to now I'm a director for Lands Advisory Board. I'm one of the national directors. So another positive tip is because there's so many British Columbia bands in land code that you are very well represented at the national table. So we have more representatives from here than from BC than anywhere else. So we have a large voice at the national table like concerns and stuff like that. So,
I have 2 questions. From the time you implemented the land code into your community, what was the most difficult issue or most difficult one item that you had to deal with?
Communication with the people, with the membership. The same issue that you're having right now, as far as making sure everyone understands what's going on and the changes that are coming. And making sure that everybody understands. Fear is based out of lack of knowledge. And the more knowledge that you can give the people, the better. And that was the most difficult part about it, is having that engagement with the people. So, like I said, the family meetings were huge for us to get that engagement. I would say a close second was to change old habits. Changing old habits on how to do things. So this is how we've done this for years. Well, you got to do it this one now.
Okay. And what has been the most rewarding since you've had land code implemented in your community?
We're, in my opinion, we're one step closer to being out from under the thumb of INEC. So we're one step closer to us being responsible for ourselves. So that falls along with membership code, with election code, land code. We now handle our own health, our own education, right? It's about taking care of ourselves. We're one step closer to independence, in my view, and that's what the rewarding thing is about it. And we can have impact, immediate positive change. We see an issue that's going on, we can develop a policy or a law about it, and if the community agrees, it can be implemented in no time. Comparatively to sending something, if we had it, like before, if we had a problem tree in our yard, nobody did it, but you would have to call Ottawa. Well, hey, I've got a problem tree. If I don't cut it down before winter, it could blow it and crush my house. They would go and hum about it and try to figure it out, and then maybe they would send somebody out and give you permission to do it. Whereas now, it's a problem tree, we send somebody from the office to assess it. Yep, it needs to come down, it's down. You know what I mean? So that's one of the other benefits for it. And I stole that from the chief engineers. Thank you very much for your time. Yep.
What is the name of that national people?
Oh, the Lands Advisory Board.
The Land Advisory Board.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did your business development corporation exist prior to 2014? I'm just curious because we do have a business development corporation.
Yeah, it was in its.
And it's working very hard to try to do what it needs to do, but it keeps bumping into us and the next door neighbor and the council and the cows and everything. Yeah, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, it was in its infancy at that time. I think it was, I can't remember when exactly it was, what, 2000? Oh no, it might have been officially enacted around 2014, right in that area. And really it's there for legal protection and to have someone to focus on business development so that the rest of the office can focus on social programs and land code and do the things that it needs to do. And it is a growing, there's growing pains involved in that as well, economic development for sure. Again, thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry that was long, but hopefully there was some information there for you.
Good job. Nice try.
That's it.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Before you start. Hey guys, I'd like to remind you this is a live stream, so if you have any questions, I can actually relay it to the speaker. So I'll let you guys know. And thank you guys for sticking around.
It takes a second.
Yeah. It's, It's kind of distracting, because it's got like a 15-second delay or something ridiculous.
All right.
Try to stay on the right side of the microphone. Not for you.
Which side?
The right side.
I'm good. All right, thanks, guys. It was a awesome speech. That's why I made it go first. I wanted to steal more information. My name is Sharon. But my name is Colin Penier. I'm the Chief of Scouts. I've been on there for a year now. I carry two traditional names. One from here is Hulutkin. I got it from Upper Nicola, from my grandpa Louis Lindley. It's where my other home is, so I'm kind of home. Kind of nice to be home. I lived up here for 8 years, or 10, I don't know, it was many years. But spent a lot of time in church here too, so good. My traditional name from home is Witsimoto. So I get to carry two names and I get to identify myself for all the area we come from. And we had that discussion earlier, and it related to land code, because we always have many questions on what it meant to be in land code. What does it cover? And then we have to get through all our biases of we own everything, everything belongs to us, we have the rights to every piece of land I can see. So we open up and pull out our status cards, remember what that means. You're an Indian under the Indian Act, you live on a reserve, or you're attached to a reserve with many numbers, maybe 7 of them, we only have 3. So, you know, whether we like it or not, we are attached to the Indian Act, to the reserve lands we're in right now. And for me, it was a challenging topic, even though I was on the land code committee from the beginning. I had a lot of questions on, well, why are we doing this? What does it mean? Is it really, are we caving into the government again? Are they still bossing us around? But yeah, they're still going to be there whether we vote yes or no. You know, voting no is not going to piss anyone in the government off. You know, it's not going to be like, oh yeah, let's vote no to revolt. The only ones affected are these guys, the youth. You know, I shared with the chief in Chilliwack. And we talked, I don't know how I talked on land code, and he said him and his council weren't really sure on if they support land code or not. And they're like, you know, we don't think we support it. The neighboring community has a landfill site. We don't want that. And we're afraid land code's gonna bring this into our community and land code's gonna ruin our people, and the list went on. I was like, whoa, so slow down a little bit. I said, you know, it's tough to understand. I can understand why they had those questions, that exact same questions when I started, but I had to dig very deep to find out what the answers were. One of those things I told him was like, well, think of it this way. I said, you don't want a landfill. Does your council want a landfill? He's like, no. I said, so when you implement land code, there's a land use portion that comes with it. You'll see in, I don't know if it's an individual agreement, there's a land use plan area, and what it takes to amend a land use plan or change it, even accept the land use plan. I don't know, ours, we didn't require a referendum, but maybe your guys' land use plan requires a vote to accept it, or just people in a meeting, or we switched ours to, we get enough community involvement at our community planning where we switched it to, if you're in the meeting and you want to accept the land code, you can. If you're not there, your SOL, your opinion doesn't count, or send somebody. So I shared that with the guy. I said, well, I think 20 years down the road, chief and council still has all the power. We kind of heard chief and council can put pen to paper and make a decision. Yeah, we want a landfill. Do you want that for your kids? I said. He's like, no. So how do you create certainty for your youth and for the ones coming up who we're supposed to care for, who we're supposed to provide for, who we're supposed to plan for? I said, so quit thinking about right now what affects only you and yourself. I said, what's affecting your future? I said, we go to all these tables in leadership, it's all about our kids, it's all about the youth. You know, we want self-government, we want to
take care of our own. You hear the list in community planning meetings of all these things we want. And when it comes to our table, like, whoa, screw that. That's changed. We don't want it no more. It just sounded good on paper. No, it's good in the plan. So I put it to my community all the time. I said, what do you guys want? When we have it down, we have to act on what it means to be who we are. And I told Jason had some good slides up there on whether the land code or not, you're still going by your traditional laws, your traditional teachings, and what it means to be whoever you are, and understanding where you come from. I think that's an important piece when you start analyzing where we came from, where we're going, and who are we affecting. It's hard to stop thinking about right now because everything we do is right about now, but we talk about the future all the time. So if we all sort of spiel off now, we all know I don't want a landfill. I don't want future development that's going to be environmentally hazardous to people. The list goes on all the things I want, but that's only me. We've seen so much leadership within the province, the nations of what things they can do and things happen. I think that's what scared people. Like you said, it's one of those things that takes away that, I don't want to call it power, but some people call that when you're in leadership, of being able to make change. So it's kind of once you have that land use plan, you know where everything's going to be in your community. You know where the future gas bar is, the future commercial development is, where we're going to cut land, where we're going to have an industrial business zone. All these things are going to be there for you. You're just going to know where they're going to be in the future. You become the future leader. Well, screw that crap. He says, I want to build something here. It's not in the land use plan, buddy. Those are the things we have to go for. And this is the things that we can be assured our youth and our future are going to have. And I said, that's one of the most important things I shared with that chief. I said, how do you create a future that you know is going to be a future? Instead of just them wondering, well, I wonder what's going to happen 20 years down the road for Ohio, or the ones that are being born today. I think those are some of the key messages we brought home. But in the middle, I think I don't know what it was. One day I heard too many people are wondering, well, this is such a pro land code presentations everywhere I go. So no one ever tells me about the crappy stuff or the bad things that come with it if there are cons or challenges. So I looked online. I did my research. I said, well, let's see who voted no on land code. So the most recent one I found was Lilwat. They voted no 2015? We're in 16 now. 2015, and one of the, I don't know if it's what the main reasons were, but it kind of got thrown in with their election too. So lo and behold, let's throw an election in with land code. Two separate things. But it became a platform for some of the people of, well, if you said, no, I don't want land code today, well, I won't support land code if I get voted in. So it became this whole, we all know how elections are, election time. So just throw land code in the mix of how much we don't understand now. Because even at that time, it took me a 2-year process. It took quite a long time for me, even being on the committee, reading an individual agreement, reading the community ratification process. A long time to fully understand. So that's I think ours was 40 pages or something. I won't say stupid like that, but it's like just, it's hard to read. You're like, whoa, read a page, forget what you read, start over again. It was a long process. So in there, getting mixed up is pretty easy. So as I found out, Lilwat said no. I said, well, here, let's phone these guys. Let's phone the land guy. I said, hey man, what happened? He's like, well, before that though, I talked to the guy. There was a good article. The paper wrote in there who was behind most of it was the elders. They were leading the charge for anti-land code, and they had a lot of very valid reasons. It wasn't part of traditional lands. It wasn't a unique agreement to their own people, because if you looked at the land code, you read Jason's land code, you read our land code, you read ours, it's pretty much identical in certain aspects of just what has to be part of it. There's things we can change that are unique to us. So that was one of their argumentative points was, you say it's a unique process, it's not. It's going to lead us into treaty. If you look on that, I don't encourage you to look at what it meant, but they had some valid points on what it meant to vote against land code.
There's sovereignty based too. But
Yeah.
they're like, we don't accept you in the first place, so I'm not going in there. I have that article, if anyone wants to see it, I can send it.
It's a very enlightening article, but a lot of it is covered in land code, but if you start feeling, you can feel it within land code, because it's all dear to our hearts on, this is reserved land, is not our land. The whole traditional territory, whatever else is ours. And we can all say that and believe it. Government may not. So it hit home with a lot of the community members on why to vote no. And some of the council ended up jumping on the bandwagon of, yeah, so we're gonna vote no, we're not gonna implement land code if we get elected. So elections came, people that voted no came in and got elected. So I asked the guys after, I said, well, what does land code look like then? Or what does land management look like on reserved lands if your council thinks it's not land code? I said, so if they want on this whole spiel, they should have a plan that's saying, well, if I don't support land code as a council member, I must have a better way to manage reserved lands that are being managed by somebody. I say somebody because we don't even know who manages their lands. We can call them Canada, INAC, whoever you want. You know, that's the challenge we face right now. So as a leader, as you're voting no, or whatever it is that they had, I said, well, tell me what it looks like then. And I started reading our land code, because I was kind of like, well, maybe they are right. Maybe they have a point. Maybe they're gonna lead me in a direction saying, let's go committee, we're gonna go somewhere else. And you know, I thought about that. Because I was on that whim of like, well, if they're just pushing the S down my throat, there must be something on it. There must be a catch. Turns out there wasn't much, because I read through the agreement again and said, well, it's pretty hard to manage reserved lands any different than a senior land code. I said everything in there is relevant to what it means right now. It takes more authority, more power away from chief and council as they make decisions. And I didn't get to hear back from that guy and seeing what he got in response back from his leadership on it. And you know, and then they had, for them, they brought in, to show you how hard it is to even sway some people on no, they brought in people that had a no vote. But then they're like, well, you know, we voted no, but now we see the challenges again as they're trying to progress in business, economic development, whatever it is they're trying to do. They're having challenges working with Canada again, and they weren't able to vote again. They're like, no, now you're just trying to sway us to say yes now because you voted no in the past. You heard a no vote. You know, so there is, no's are possible, but it seems like as they go along and they progress. And one of the bigger challenges, Little Lot said they weren't ready. They didn't have the capacity level to take on managing their lands. Are we ready to do it? You know, is it a thing that we can handle? And on the way up here, I was thinking, I said, we're never ready. You know, I said, what if the government said today, here you guys go back. There's no Indian app. Here's your land, figure it out. You don't get no funding, you don't get no nothing. I said, hey, that's not what we asked for, even though we did. That's what we're all asking for at leadership tables. So what's the better way to learn than to practice? Some of my staff I've hired in the last year didn't know anything about the department they're in. And they became some of the most successful employees I've had over the last 8 years. So we can't measure if we're ready by just whatever. I said we have to start taking that chance. Trusting in ourselves, trusting in the community. So that's some of the biggest things I said. We're talking about educating the people within this process. I said, how many are here? Just like network marketing skills, you hear all the time. Come election time, how many people are you talking to? How many people do you hear on a hallway talking about it? You guys got to create that discussion. You know, you guys are here for a reason. As everything happens, we're here for certain things. You guys pass that message on to as many people as you can. Say, be a part of the community. We hear all our people complain all the time. This isn't happening. This will vote. Vote no. Vote yes. Show you're doing something for your people. You know, so inform them of what they can vote. Say, vote no, go ahead. I'm not encouraging that, but as you go through, as you educate them on what you know, what it means for your future, what it means for your community, you know, this is where most of you guys probably growing up, you've seen it change, you've seen what it means to come from where you are. And I know you've had challenges with land. I remember years ago, you know, there's been some things trying to be imposed on certain reserves. You know, how divided that got you guys?
Sorry to interrupt, but a viewer online asked, and what kind of implications this has, or like land code has for our off-reserve members?
We've had that. I said, you know, I think one of the biggest things that made it, it makes it easier for me to offer land, offer a place to live. You know, we just cleared some, Jason talked about it, we just cleared some land for 6 units. And I was just talking with our community member before that, I said, for me to do this, it's gonna take at least 3 months. We just did it in, I don't know, 5 days. We got the trees down, land cleared, and we're ready for development. We're ready for the inspections to come. And so we're going through CMHC for new housing. If we didn't have the opportunity we're providing for off reserves, that's probably one of the bigger things for them, is to give them a place to have home. But I don't know how much treed land or cleared land you guys have, but they want a site inspection to come in. I said, well, they would have came in trees 1 week ago. There's a cedars, maples, whatever. You would need to tell us going to be a house there in, you know, in a week. So in 1 week, we cleared the land. Now it's sitting there. So those are some of the benefits to having, providing housing is one of the first things, I think. And then, you know, off reserve, I think it's an educational tool. It gave them the opportunity. We reached way more people off reserve than we've ever had any time. We had people, or like you said, from Manitoba, from Washington, from all over the place. But then it opens up that communication. It gives us, not part of land code, but when we make the communication, we have those emails now. We have phone numbers. We can find these people, and hopefully they start learning more about what we're doing. And just think it's a positive step towards where we're going in the future. So.
I had a personal question, actually. Because you have your own land code now in your community, do you feel that the pros with having the land code and having these responsibilities outweigh the actual weight of the responsibilities?
Yeah, I can't even say, yeah, it's awesome, because we're just starting.
Yeah.
But it's an exciting time. It's for me, it's such an unknown. But I don't know if anyone else feels the same. But let's go. Let's just do it and find out what's behind that door. I said, we know what's behind this door. It's not a transparent process for anybody. There's no one to hold accountable. This way, we have many people to hold accountable to the process. You got your committees, leadership, your own community members. You can't hold your community members accountable with the way it is now. Now you can. You can say, well, where were you? This is what was going to change things for us, or whatever it is. You know, I say it to my community members all the time. I said, if you're not here, if you're not given a voice, what are you doing? They're the ones still complaining in the background, but that's okay. We still hire them and talk to them, try to educate as they go along. But it's a fun process. I said and I think one of the questions I heard earlier too, I just wanted to go to was, how much does it cost to live on reserve? You know, I know some friends that have a once-a-year headache they have to go through to live where they live that they already own.
Property tax.
Yeah. You know, we talk about enforcement and everything else, but how much does it cost to stay on reserve? I think that's one of the things where it's a tough topic because we've never had to do it. But we talk about the challenges it has having these things in place. So, you know, it's one thing to talk to the people. How much does it cost for you to stay on reserve? How much does it cost to live off reserve? And why are these, people ask us all the time, why don't you have these things? Why aren't you enforcing this? Why aren't you implementing this? And I said, man, the government doesn't give me money for that. So some of the challenges are there that were brought up. But I just want people to remember, it's not, we don't have any fees on reserve to live here. And it does put a challenge on leadership. How do we get those fees? How do we gather more money for the people? So it's a fun process of living both sides of the table. So I've been on both sides of trying to find all the cons I could just to see if I could find something in it that was a loophole of why I should encourage people to not vote. Yes. So we were very, in our meetings, initial meetings, we gave a lot of the information out. We said, is it our land? Is it our decision? Is it for the future? So we had to vote twice because we had some technical glitches the first time. So the second time I wasn't as neutral. I don't think I had this shirt on. I don't know if you guys seen what it said. So I was parading around the reserve, gathering voters. I said, here you go. I said, let's go. So, you know, we had to actually go pick up people. I said, get in the car. You're doing something important, and you can win a prize. That was part of there. There was two things we could do. I said, you got a grand prize to win. I said, but we talked to our age group. I said, this is important for your future. What are you guys doing? It's time to vote. You know, we're very real with our people, and we're very small, which is nice. There's only about 100 people on reserve. I think we only needed 77 yeses, or no, 47. We didn't even need that much. We were like so small. We just needed a few. We missed it by not informing the first time. There's a big difference, even though we would have had it the first time, but some guy couldn't get on online voting for the last little bit. So we had a problem, and we missed it by one vote. So due to that technical glitch, we had to re-vote. So our neighboring community was short by 17, I believe, that it was. So just talking about information and people not knowing, there's a big disadvantage. We went from not having one, just by missing one. I think we had, well, 15, 16 or something over the amount we needed for yes, and then our neighboring community, freaking like 50, they increased about 2/3 of their yeses. And they were supposed to be on the hill of being yes and no, but there was so much information coming out, more people were engaged. I don't know if it was more prizes too. I'm not sure, but somewhere along the line, like, I got a prize, so I'm gonna vote yeah. It must be a good thing. No, so we do kind of bribe you that way.
Yours passed with about 92%, and Shiam passed with about 76.
So there's 38 now coming up. There's three of us. There's a group of 3 of us that are together that passed. So there's quite a few, and there's most of us. There's quite a few in there, Fraser Valley, that have jumped on board. So you know, So I wanted to share sort of that there was a lot of hesitation on my part when I first looked at it and what were the challenges. And one of the things I just want to, I just like, how do I share something that's not the same stuff I heard for many meetings is what I was like, come on, give me something new. Give me something juicy. Give me something interesting. You know, I was always looking for some excitement. I know how fun it is. So my hands are up to you guys for coming out because it is important. It's important for what's going on. We talked about self-government and what are we going to do. So it's so awesome to see everybody here. And I see a hand. I didn't want one. I'm just kidding.
So maybe this is for Jason as well, since he's community environment. But how are your land advisory committees formed? How are the people chosen?
It's more this guy. We're on the way there. We're not there yet.
So we, very much similar to what you had mentioned, is we try to have a broad range. And we put out within our governance, we want representation from all ages. It's not a requirement, but we want to have a youth representation, at least one youth, at least one elder, and then we try to diversify by family groupings. So we have representation from as many different family groupings as possible.
So is that actually in the code, or are you just trying?
Yeah, it's in the governance. It's in the governance of that committee. So every committee in our band has a governance that they follow.
Okay. Was that in the get-go when you ratified it, or was it?
No, I think it was in the ratification of the land code itself. I'm not quite sure. I don't think it was part of the land code.
There was probably guidelines.
Yeah.
But maybe not specifics, right down to families. one of the other bands that just passed recently, just a neighbor to both these guys, they were very specific on the number, on the representation, so they actually listed out the family names. But not every community goes to that extent, they will just give a guideline and then that's to be determined.
Because you gotta be careful you don't handcuff yourself, right? So if there's no, like as an example, if we were to say you must have a youth, you must have an elder, and you can't find anybody who wants to do it, then because you're so strict, you can't have a committee until you fill those spots with the appropriate numbers. So you have to make sure that you're giving nice and strict guidelines that, but in addition, it gives you enough leeway that you can still move forward with the work if you're not satisfied every single criteria. But again, trying to be as open and diverse as you can. If you can have off-reserve representation, if you can have youth and elder and separate family representation, in a perfect, that's going to work best for you. Just simply because everyone will have knowledge, no one will feel like, well, that's only because the Tommy, Johnny, and Susie family don't like me, so they voted this law in place. No, because you've got to be able to as well. Right?
So first of all, that question is so good that it's worth a gift card, please, Jeff. And second, for the LNIB land code, it is by appointment, it is section 34 of the land code, it deals with your land management advisory committee. What we're trying something new here. We're trying to, we're gonna have 4 tiers of land code champions, and we put LMAC out there for land management advisory committee. So if you do, we're trying to get you to do 20 hours as land code champions before you're eligible for land management advisory committee. Because we want some sort of commitment from you first. We'll pay you either $13 an hour, $19 an hour, $40 an hour, or you can volunteer. Like, but we want, no, because some people don't need the money. Like some, yeah.
I
Well,
didn't
some
get it.
people are really good, we want young people.
40 bucks an hour, right?
If you come in with degrees and prove you're worth $40 an hour, I'll pay you, because I'm not gonna pay consultants more than I'm paying members. I'm gonna pay students, we're gonna train students, but we want you in it. We're not gonna lose you because I couldn't offer $27 an hour more. Like, I'm not gonna lose you on that. So we have tiers. So we want you at every level. We want young people, $13 an hour. We want, like, the average person, $90 an hour, are superstars. We'll bail it by and they'll get $40 an hour. You have a master's degree, you want $40 an hour? Tell me. Like, we are in the new millennium, your time is worth money. If you can prove it, make your case. So, there you go. I'm sorry, we're working it.
Jump on that, we just do a standard meeting rate.
We'll go back to school.
Everybody.
That's the plan. Come on, get educated.
For us, it doesn't matter if your traditional or cultural knowledge is where your strength is. If you've got a grade 2 education or you've got a master's degree, not that you're suggesting this, but the value is no different for us. You're representing your family and where you come from and your knowledge base. And so everybody's the same worth. And we all get I don't, because I'm on council, I don't get to honoraria. So, but everybody gets a meeting honoraria based on either a half meeting or a full meeting. And that's how it works for us.
I just want to say, the actual committee will get the same pay, but to be the champions, to do your 20 hours, to get to the committee, will be at a different pay range. But once you're on the committee, you all get the same. It won't be like, oh, you're only worth like 1/3. Once you're on the committee, but to get to the committee, the 20 hours first, that's the thing.
So we have to do this 20 hours before we're considered to be on the committee.
Yes.
The land code committee.
Yes.
That's a
What happened to appointment? I don't get it, I'm sorry.
Well, then, from those people, we will appoint. Well, how else would we get to an appointment?
Well, for instance, I've sat on the health committee, I've sat on the policing committee, I've sat on the education committee, I've sat on the housing committee,
What would stop you
natural
from,
resources.
what would stop you from 3 days of doing something? 3 7-hour days, what would stop you? If you
I don't
can't,
think I have to do that, to sit on the land, code committee.
we think, and it's a tentative idea, we think, that it is a small investment that equalizes the field for everyone, and you can come up with what you wanna do. We think it's a small investment. So you could write a paper for 20 hours and do it as a volunteer on that volunteer tier and say, I did 20 hours, here's a briefing note on something. You could do anything, but we want people who know the land code. So do anything on the land code for 20 hours to get, like, to be ready for appointment. I think it's a great idea. It was my idea.
I bet it was.
I think it's a great idea. I'm okay with it. I love you, too. So I cannot see what's wrong with asking someone to do 20 hours at any level.
I've invested, and that's what I'm saying. And I've invested so much of it into this community. And outside the community. For the community membership, for my family, and for myself. I've already done that. So I don't think I need to prove myself again, especially at 64 years of age. And the color of my skin, or my ethics, and who I know, who I am.
You're a tough one, Norma, because I've watched your career for a long time. I know who you are too, so I'm a big fan. I'd be like, give Norma the pass. But we're gonna be fair. And all I'm saying is, can you make a 20-hour investment? 20
That's
hours.
not fair if it's from your position. It's not fair.
I'm sorry to interrupt. But those are decisions that the community will make in the future under a land code. But sorry, I'm just trying to move along. We have 2 questions on the floor.
My question is, you said you did a second vote kind of thing? So like the first one totally failed?
No, it was a technical glitch.
Okay,
So
so.
there's not really a second vote, but due to.
So it's like 1 and 1 and then made it into 1.
Yeah, it was basically, there was a glitch, so the verifier did it first, all he did, Denise? Recommended? Yeah, he recommended there be a revote due to this, so basically that's one of the only reasons to get a revote. So if we did fail the first time, we'd have been SO on. So
I brought up that question at the band meeting, and the band meeting question was, we flopped this. How much is it gonna cost for us to go and do this whole process, and what's the timeline? Is there a 5-year timeline? Is there a 1 year, or what's, how much is it gonna cost?
Can I ask you? So a second vote is not an automatic. A second vote has to be lobbied by the Lands Advisory Board, which is the elected officials. There has to be a proven reason why the vote failed. If it was just inadequate information sharing, that likely isn't going to be a sufficient enough reason. If there was a death in the community the day before the vote, if there was an ice storm that precluded people from coming out to the polling stations, or something along those lines would be likely viewed upon as an automatic.
Fishing open for the first time.
Yes.
In ours, it's different. Section 21.1 of the CRP says that there can be an additional polling day at the sole discretion of the ratification officer.
Yeah.
So there can be an additional polling day at the sole discretion of the ratification officer. It gives reasons that it might be, but it's not limited to. But the sole discretion of the ratification officer, we can get 1 extra day.
Yeah, so if your vote fails.
Yes. Okay, if it failed.
After
What
that
happens?
1 extra day.
They said that, say if it fails on the extra day, that, you get an extension.
So as I was saying, the Lands Advisory Board would have to lobby on behalf of LNIB to INAC.
The cost is typically at the band's expense.
Of course.
For a ratification vote for a band of this size, for a band of an average band in BC, say, let's say 300 voters, you probably would be looking at about 15,000, maybe 20,000 to do proper engagement again amongst the community members and continue the process on.
So we're 4 times bigger than the 300.
So if we know,
No, but we were supposed to vote in May.
Yeah.
We're voting in August.
Right.
We know for a fact that it has cost us $34,000 extra by going,
By the change of date.
by the change of date. We know that for a fact. So at least, you could say at least $40,000 extra it will cost. See, if we choose to go to vote again, because you'll have a new council, and the new council might say, no, I'm not going back there. So then we've lost the whole investment that we put in, but that's the will of the people.
yeah, so that's why you'll.
So what's the time frame? So like, we fail, say at the end, middle of August, we have to wait 6 months, a year, or 5 years.
You'll have to wait for your new council in October to make a decision. That'll probably take them at least 2 months.
No, I think what he's asking is, let's take the council out of it, and just be like if there was.
Figure out what the timeline is.
Yeah.
What's the milestone date?
We're not in action. The day we vote, August 11th and 12th. On August 13th, these guys nominate a new council. They vote October. We already know that. There's no way anything will happen in that meantime. It just won't.
We just wanted to share, I just wanted to give an answer, like Squamish voted no, when was that? I don't know what year.
2008.
So they've been doing a lot of progress on that, but they're still not in line code, so I think you get an idea, we're in 2016.
If the
I don't
lottery
know if
was
it was a launch or
successful,
not.
what would happen then? If the lottery was
If it was successful.
Yeah, I'll answer that. If council decides they want to move forward with membership support, it's supported by the minister and by the resource center, and you have your own funds, essentially it would re-trigger the ratification timeline, which is according to the CRP, 35 days notice.
Right.
That's what it would take. And in the time for that decision to be made, if you could restart that 35-day notification process, that'll vary depending on if it's approved, if the community decides that they do want to go to a second vote, and also if the timeline goes too far, you have to start paying attention to your individual agreement, because your environmental assessments only have a 5-year window on them, and then they have to be redone. So that would also come into the funding process.
And they are right at the window now. The ESAs are right at the window now.
Okay, so how much has it cost so far? You know, and say this whole thing goes through, we do the vote on whatever.
It has cost at least $300,000 so far.
Okay, so that's a freebie, and we get a yes, right?
It's not a free.
Well, no, it's getting funded by the First Nation.
They funded $150,000.
Okay.
We put in $150,000 of our own money.
All right, so the next vote is going to cost us,
Yeah, at least $40,000 to $50,000.
at least.
And that's
Okay,
not even the vote.
that's not even the vote.
That's just how much it costs to do the work we do.
That's probably another 50 to 100,000 there. So if we screw up the first vote, we have to pay the piper.
It's not even an option.
You'll get less gift cards next time.
Here's a loony.
We got another question.
Or no, 10% off the next thing.
Yeah, I have a question. What was INAC's response when like you guys have talked to other bands that have gone through and to the land code? What is INAC's response to what you're doing or what your positions are about the land? Are they happy just to let go and shoo you away?
I don't talk to them anyway.
Oh, you don't talk to
I
them?
don't think we don't believe, we don't do all this communication.
So from the Lands Advisory Board table, there's sort of two camps from the federal government. So one camp is, like you said, happy to wash their hand of the responsibility. They're okay with it. There's the other side of it that realizes that with that responsibility, that outgoes part of their budget. And so they have a tendency of wanting us to fail. Okay, so I don't know, does that answer your question? So it's kind of a little bit of both. They're happy to allow us to do it ourselves. It's sort of like everything else that we've taken over for like our education, our healthcare. They're happy to let us do it, and they sort of hope that we don't do well at it, right? But we're succeeding, we're doing very well.
So if you happen to fail with your land code process, what happens?
You mean fail in the vote, or in?
No, in your enacting
Okay.
all the things that you have listed.
So this leads into what I wanted to ask for a second to speak about is a lot of communities are worried about their capacity in order to do this work. And what I'm here to tell you is that, and what Colin has already talked about, is that the amount of training that's available now, like we've created a manual for land managers in order to learn a lot of the stuff that needs to be done. The support from the staff is incredible. Senior, up until very recently, we would have 1 or 2 staff members at every one of our land code meetings. Now, I'm not suggesting that these ladies drive up here once a month, but they're there to help. Other communities, other land code communities will, and again, I can't speak for everybody, but like Chiacton as an example, West Bank as another, were very, very helpful with us. We had a question about a law, they go, here, this is ours. Feel free to use this. We spent $180,000 in legal fees to develop this, but you can use it for free, and you guys can make it yours. So there's tons of support, both with other land code bands and with the staff, that will help your community get to where it needs to get to. And the amount of training that happens for your staff in order to get them where you need to get them is there as well.
So you started off your presentation saying that you had some laws that you would allow us to use if we passed ours.
Yep.
So it's like a pass it on kind of process?
Exactly. And as long, and again, it's about making it work for you.
Yeah.
Some of our laws will be completely, we're worried about flood protection. I don't know if you have to worry about that here or not, but, just stuff like that.
Yeah. So like land, well, environmental issues are something that we've been in the news about for quite some time, and I think that our land and our water protection issues that I would see would highly impact you guys down the river as well.
Fish and all the rest of it, yeah.
So strengthening up our environmental issues, by looking at what your concerns are as well, would be something that we would love.
Yeah, and all those would be, I can't speak specifically for Seabird or all myself, but I'm very, very sure that we'd be willing to provide you anything that we have. And again, I can't speak for West Bank, Jack, and any of the other bands, but they were helped. West Bank is the first, so, but everyone else was helped, and I'm sure they'll just pass that on. And you're not in it alone. You're not in a vacuum. The assistance that you have is there, and it's skilled. You're in a very good position. Like you've shown the numbers. There's 38 bands within BC that are all now involved. A lot of experience. When did West Bank first do it?
2005.
So there's
early years.
Early 2000s, the West Bank. So it's been over a decade now. They've been operational. Seabird's been operational for 5, 6. It's been a while now, but we've been operational, and we've had a lot of bumps in the road. We've made a lot of mistakes, and let other people learn from those mistakes.
And just to add on that, the part of my role after a successful vote, I would continue to work with your community and help you set up work plans, help you find your priorities, help do research nationally for information that you need, and because that would be my job to help see what other communities might fit LNIB's need, and then I would pull those resources and give them to you and help you develop those. And that would be a free resource that the Resource Center provides, is our assistance, our expertise, and being able to help you implement Line Code.
So we use INAC, OEG, and LAP.
And all of the 58 First Nations support behind it.
they're tremendous. Staff is tremendous. I can't say enough about it. Before I was a director, I was just a land code member on my reserve, and the staff just really assisted us getting over. We struggled for a long time getting this and that, and once the staff knew what it is we were trying to accomplish, they very patiently took us through it. So.
So just reflecting then, if West Bank has been in there since the 70s?
Nope, since early 2000s.
Early 2000s. So would that kind of lead back then to perhaps because of the high amount in business, like economic development, industrialization on their lands? Like when we first started having the land code, the discussions get started around here, the idea or the notion that LNIB will be voting on this. I thought, well, I can understand, say, West Bank, Campbell City, and Kickton, the bands that have all of those,
Tourists,
enterprises, no economic development, and where they are highly impacted by businesses coming on and big business, and there would definitely be, they would have to have leverage on how the businesses will operate on their reserve. So that's what I thought. So I thought, well, how does Florida Quebec fit in there? And I've been kind of wrestling around with that. And it's probably something I'm going to have to wrestle around with for a bit longer on my own. And like Chief Collins said earlier, one of my first thoughts as well was treaty. You know, it kind of sounded like that to me. And I have to have a really strong talk with myself.
In regards to treaty, and this is another thing that the chief and I both agree on. I'm not a fan of treaty. It's like I don't know if I want to be a little cautious about. But for me, it's like negotiating on like somebody pickpockets me, and then I negotiate with them as to how much of my money out of my wallet I get back. So that's why I don't necessarily agree with treaty. The difference between treaty and land code is that all it is we're taking over responsibility of governing what happens on our land, on our reserve land. Thank you, on our reserve land. And the whole big thing with the Chilcotin decision, right? The fact that we have to be consulted what happens to our traditional lands. Now that's traditional territory as opposed to reserve land. But the combination of land code with the Chilcotin decision, in my head, and I'm not a political or a legal expert, but in my opinion, those two combine to be stronger than treaty, in my opinion.
And there's a lot of thoughts going on, in my head, and in some of our family, the members of our family, I can see them thinking about it. So having discussions like this and seeing presentations like this is really helpful. And knowing there's a large neighborhood up there that will help.
Yeah.
I just want to add a little bit to that one too. I know we're both not in favor of whatever treaty means, but we're utilizing land code as a tool to combat traditional land, and whatever's in there is a management area we're creating within our whole region to manage all the lands surrounding our area. So it's also a stepping stone capacity building, because if you start taking in traditional territory, who's going to be able to manage, who's going to create the law? That would be bylaws more because it is district stuff, but we have laws around, we can still have laws, but they become bylaws over there. So who's going to enforce, who's going to administer, what is it going to look like? We still have to develop that capacity. So land code almost is a freebie for us to start asserting ourselves in a traditional territorial sense to say this is all our land. We all know that. But how do we start making people abide by the laws if we don't have them? What kind of laws are we going to enforce? Environmental laws. So that's where you start talking to your partners. We're talking with about 2 different neighbors now. We're trying to assert ourselves in a little bit of a valley and say, fishing is going to be monitored. This is going to be monitored. So you start giving you, I guess, confidence as well for some of the people, as well as think people like, oh, stop, what does it mean? And you can do what you want. So, not like that, but it does create the confidence you have the laws to back it up. And I said, even if you make them, you're still practicing, you're just reinforcing old laws. That's how we're trying to attack it right now. So we're not creating nothing new. We're just gonna start telling the people, this is the laws that are on the land that you're living on right now. So it sort of adds on to the whole piece of, you know, it's totally opposite of, we look at it as opposite tree to give us more, a stronger foundation to stand on when we start going into territorial arguments that we're really keen on doing.
So as an example to that, our Ag Rights and Title Department is looking at the laws that we've developed under land code to have an impact on any conversations that we have in regards to a traditional territory. So if we say, so as an example, one of our laws would say that, I don't even know, no dumping or any kind of significant work happens within so many meters of body of water. So that's the law on reserve, as far as we're concerned. So then we have just a Kinder Morgan or McDonald's or whoever wants to do something in our traditional territory. And they ask us for permission because under the Chilcotin decision, they have to do that now. They have to consult with us. So we go back to them and say, well, according to our reserve laws and our traditional laws, we don't allow anything within so many meters of a body of water. So whatever you're planning to do, in our opinion, it has to fit that criteria. So that's what Chief is talking about, marrying our laws that we develop within land code with traditional laws in order to assert our authority over our traditional territory. So one, I have to be clear again, the laws that we develop under land code are only applied to reserve land. However, they can be used within talks in the traditional territory. Does that make sense?
We're fighting for our rights now.
And building the capacity as a community, you know, and showing that this is how LNIB manages their lands and controls their lands. And then, you know, my personal opinion is exactly that, is building your capacity to then extend your boundaries once your reserve lands are working like a clock, like it, you know, it gives you that, shows the authority to outside governments too, that you are in charge and that this is your laws. Personal opinion. Any other questions? Yes.
I hear that you were talking about networking, and I worked in the land management area, and I was at a meeting. My cousin dragged me from KIB to go there. I was working for Shaq in and I know Lord Nicola has a representative, which was for First Nations Alliance for Land Management.
Yeah.
And which was really interesting because when you went to that meeting, you were talking to Westland, you were talking to County and there was representatives sent from Squamish and Chaplain, all these other bands that were all interactive. And what was really great about it was that when they finished doing something, everybody, if it was petitioned, they would forward in an email to everybody that attended that meeting what they did. This is the sample of what we did for our certain blah 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 for whatever IR, kind of thing, but it was related to land management. And then you would get something from KIB and it would just be a multiple layer of emails coming in, which was quite amazing because, and then they tell you how much was spent on it. You're like, wow, I got like $600,000 all these finished projects.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's right there for easy access. Are you guys involved in that kind of thing with the First Nations Alliance for Land Management?
There's a fundamental difference. They do very good work there, but they work under INAC constrictions. They work under their rules. Yeah. We're operating under the land code rules. But the same relationship applies. The same relationships, so the same support level, the same. Like when we talk about the laws that we've developed, if it wasn't for the fact that we had been given the base for them, that had gone through legal, we would have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on those laws. We spent a fair amount as it was to make it our own. Had to have a lawyer in the room the whole time and checked by a secondary lawyer, and it cost a fair amount of money regardless. But the cost would have been astronomical for us to do that without the help of the other land code bands. So yes, the support is there.
And just to further that, we have been developing a land governance manual that's developed on the best practices of operational First Nations, and that's exactly what it is the tools that everyone has developed under their operational structure. We're working to collect. We've collected them from the Stodo operational nations, and now we're working to bring in the rest of BC as well as across Canada. So the manual itself is just going to be better and better and better as we keep moving forward.
Better version.
Exactly, and encouraging sharing and networking of those tools, so everyone's getting that best practice to start basing their work on.
We're trying to turn that into a curriculum for our bands to be able to send their stuff to.
Get into the IT eventually. Somewhere, or wherever, but we're also members of BC Aboriginal Land Managers Association, BCOM, there's the Alliance for Land Management, there's LAB, that we're all becoming certified Aboriginal land managers. That's 4 massive, like, networking opportunities. Like, this is a big field.
And fantastic people in the field. Like it really is.
Yeah, I kind of get inspired because my cousin, she's a land leasing officer. She also did a lot of the stuff for Sun Rivers and all that. So she's telling me what's going on. You gotta do the First Nation land management. And then I'm like, well, all we got is taxation and CCT. And then she goes, well, no, they all mean something. And then, because I had to go to class with her too on top of this too. So it's kind of inspiring because she's saying that, what they're doing, you guys are very close to being, close to doing what KIP's doing, or West Bank, or, I was stuck doing the taxation course with her, so we're both competing. So yeah, Laura Nicola makes 1.4 million in tax. Oh, we make 6. Oh, and then all of a sudden, we got to do a case study in West Bank. They make 24 million. So, we all want to be KIB. KIB wants to be West Bank. West Bank, whatever. But, the sky's the limit. They're limited in their own.
Well, we have the same thing within the Stoll communities. Squala in our territory is the big one that everyone talks about because they did some very good movement and had a lot of big businesses created there in a very short period of time. But where they are geographically plays a huge role in what they can do as far as business goes. Seabird, on the other hand, is a little bit far out. We're not going to be able to have a Walmart or anything like that because we're just in a different area. So our development or our reasons for land code are somewhat different than theirs because, Anshiakin again is a different thing because they're heavily leased and they have different opportunities than we have. So that's why everything has to be coded for you.
Don't forget, people have to drive through you guys to get to West Bank and to get to KIU. So yeah, we're situated in it.
And just to further comment on that, and then back to the question regarding land use planning is, every community is different, and it's not about economic development. It's about whatever is in the hearts of the membership and how your community sees yourselves and visions it in the future. It could be a little piece of everything. It could be just economic drivers. It could just be total position. It could be a natural, it's renewable resource energy. There's all kinds of things out there, all kinds of great things, and it doesn't mean you have to pave your land, right?
One example, I ended up at a West Bank meeting, and West Bank goes and says, yeah, and IMAX they're going and they put out their little diagram. This is how it's supposed to be done. Yeah. And then West Bank guy comes up and he looks at it. Well, we start, backwards, and, we backed our ways into it. So, and IMAX said, you're doing it wrong, and no little diagram. They said, we started out doing something by just doing have a little bylaw, and then we started out with this, and led to this creating land management, and then CCP was dead last, and the taxation was dead, and all these different variables.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was sort of, you know, it's not the same story for every town.
Yeah, the priorities and the access to funds in order to create those tools for the community also plays a factor.
And sometimes it's just accidental proposals that you accidentally got into.
So, do you guys want to do that?
Oh, okay, yeah.
I got a
Well,
few slides to
yeah.
close.
Maybe just in closing, I think a lot of good discussion, lots of good comments from the community, and thanks to our speakers. You know, I think some of the comments, you know, like it brings you back in reflection to back when I think we first, you know, started thinking about land code, you know, probably what I thought was into the 90s, early 2000s, when I think the concepts were first coming out, and you know, our band, we were relatively small in our administration at that point. We had nobody in lands, there were no funds for lands. There was a small group of us that got together and talked about it. There was a variety of different opportunities, and we had struggled. And I think that every day and every year that goes by, you know, we're continuing that same struggle, and that we don't have our own sort of internal cultural laws worked into a modern day life and how we govern ourselves. And you know, the example that I gave most recently, I think, in our council, is that we have an unwritten jurisdiction of land in our immediate territory right here, and especially, you know, we're fishing culture too, but we fish directly on the river. But when you go down to the Fraser River, you know, I personally can't just go wherever I want. I have to go where my people do. If I show up somewhere where it's not my people, someone's going to come down and tap me on the shoulder and say, you know, here's your reminder.
You only get a tap on the
You
shoulder.
only get a tap on the
Back home
reminder.
again.
You're not on your road. Move away. And people understand that, right? Like, people understand that for a lot of different things. It's not just fish, but you know, in a lot of areas it's hunting, it's mushrooms, it's berries, there's a whole myriad of complex, you know, cultural structures within ourselves, but we don't have it written down, right? And those are some of the concepts I think that we're exploring, you know, in our small groups back in the whatever it was, the 90s, early 2000s and stuff, and even today now, you know, and at that time, I think we talked about how we could use our traditional sort of knowledge and incorporate that into rules of today, and you know, we discussed that in sort of like a traditional type thing, but you know, I think the land code and the structure of it, you know, being just a sort of a skeleton framework, and then you know, and I know hats off to Anna, she's taking a lot of risk in pushing people's buttons all the time, saying, you know, if you want to do this, you have to, you know, you have to quit your 20 hours, and you have to, you know, it forces people to, you know, sometimes like get out of their comfort zone or whatever, and I'm hoping, you know, it's going to have good results, you know, but ultimately it'll be up to us, right? Like I said, I think some of the unwritten sort of laws within our community regarding land and jurisdiction and ownership, family ownership, you know, community ownership and all that sort of thing, I think they're going to be fleshed out, and those are the types of things I hope are going to be written down, you know, by the community for those who want to participate. And, you know, thanks to Colin and Jason here for coming and giving us examples of what they have in their community, and hopefully we can benefit from that and keep an open relationship. So we've got a couple of small gifts here for you guys, and thanks for your coming to our community today. And
Yeah, why don't-
Welcome to come back. Thanks, and, safe drive home. I think there's, there's getting one. Oh, yeah, sorry. Thanks to the staff or
Sure. I just double checking. Yeah, I was there. I don't know how long ago. When was that? Probably a year.
Thank you.
I'm 20 now, so that would make it as well.
Wow, I still remember. Not bad, eh? Out of the blue. Surprised you. How's that guy know my name? Oh, oh, did they? Oh, that's awesome. No, I'm awesome. That's awesome. That's cool. You should have some of those going on. That's awesome to have. Yeah, that would have worked. Oh, you got both sides? I heard it twice. Shoot, eh? That's awesome. Oh, really? Yeah. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. Okay, yeah, they're still listening. What's going on over there?